And there we are. Here we are. Hey, our guest tonight, he is a Bozeman-based adventure photographer raised in Montana's mountains and plains. After playing football at Montana State and earning a psychology degree, he ditched the helmet for a camera and never looked back. He shot over 50 countries across all 7 continents, sharing hidden corners with his 300,000 plus followers, from tourism boards in Ireland and Peru to brands like the North Face and Ram trucks. His works have popped up in Outside, ESPN, and more, always drawn back to the West. He's bringing his global vision to our humble live stream tonight. Welcome to the Big Fat Podcast, Andy. This is Andy Austin.
You. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, thank you.
This is very official.
Hey, thank you for joining us. I mean, we're so small time. Like, we can't believe that we get to talk to you. What's going on? What's going wrong for you?
Everything is going right. You guys just finally harassed me enough forever, and I've been putting it off. And then basically just got to track me down in some corner of the globe. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it into the wonderful studio so I could look as good as you guys. But
I'm sure we'll have another opportunity, I hope, in the future where you can swing into Big Fat Studios here, hang out with us. Well, this is amazing. I'm super. Hey, we're super excited. Thank you for. I've been looking down here at the screen, but I want to also be looking up here at you. But yeah, no, this is really cool. I have been scrolling through your stuff all day today, and you're basically living the lives that we all want. How did you tell us how you got into this position, my friend, that you're living our lives?
Man. That is a story that could probably take your entire podcast, but I can give you the try and do the short and condensed version.
You know what? Actually, Cole, we've been talking about can we talk about your picture book that's just about coming out?
No, I want to get that. I want to make sure that's at the forefront of everything.
Let's start right there.
That's a bad forefront of my entire life right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just relaunched the pre-orders for my new first ever coffee book called Montana Photographs from the Last Best Place. And this book it's a beast. It's 12 inches by 12 inches, 288 pages. And my goal was really to try and showcase all of Montana, which even with that is a very lofty goal. I did not accomplish it because it would be impossible, and it would take a book that is the size of my house to try and show everything. But I really wanted to showcase more than just, our national parks. And, growing up in Billings or just outside of it, I love Eastern Montana. I love Central Montana. I love the Breaks. I love Fort Peck. And I love, of course, Western Montana, being in Bozeman now. And then I make it up to Glacier at least a handful of times a year. And it's worth the hype, obviously. But I think when people think of Montana, they think of those postcard pictures of Glacier or Yellowstone or wherever. Mm-hmm. And there is so much more, and it's not lesser. It's just different. And, anybody who's spent any time on the prairie or the plains can tell you that it's a special place. And the purpose of, this book was to try and show people and share that and share my love of the whole state. And the other thing too is I wanted to do more than just a landscape book where you're flipping through and it's okay, another river, another mountain, another lake, cool, whatever. But I included some cultural events that we have, like powwows, Crow Fair, got Miles City Bucking Horse Sale, the Red Lodge Home of Champions Rodeo, canoeing Missouri Breaks. It's not just here's a landscape, but it's kind of a way of life.
Yeah. It seems like more of the culture. It is whole culture of it all.
And I wanted to make something that Montanans could be proud of, and not just, a book geared towards tourists. Obviously I'm hoping tourists give me lots of money and buy my book, but, I wanted something that would look good, whether we're sitting on a coffee table in the Yellowstone Club at a $20 million house or a double wide in Ekalaka, right? I wanted something that was going to be, looking good.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Now, when does this book become available? Is it available?
So it's available now on Kickstarter. Will always be available at MontanaPhotographyBook.com. Managed to secure that domain name,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing until you actually look around and realize there are very few Montana photography books out there, which is another reason why I wanted to do it.
Mhm.
And then, a lot of them are older. Some of the more recent ones came out over a decade ago, and there's just very few in existence. And so, and then of course, having now done this huge process, I realized why there's so few books in existence, because it is an insane amount of work. And just time, resources, money, effort to just put something out there like this. And it's obviously going to be worth it. But yeah, so MontanaPhotographyBook.com will, right now it's just redirecting to the Kickstarter, which is pre-ordering. And that will go on until May 6th. I launched it on Montana Day this year. And then after May 6th, it will live on a website that I'm building for it right now. So it'll have its own website to buy the book. And I'm hoping to have the books in hand by mid-May, early June, sometime in that time frame. Obviously, there's hiccups with timing of printing things and manufacturing processes and things like that. But I'm hoping, I sent the files off today. So that was a big push of the button send that this is happening, and I owe $50,000 to a book printer. So
holy mackerel.
Yeah.
You did have a really successful Kickstarter, though, correct? I mean, it sounds like this thing was epic. You had a ton of support.
It's been going really great. It's only been live for 5 days now. It's been live since Sunday, and it's already up to $35,000. The goal on it was $25,000, and I honestly had no idea if it would hit that. And I was fully anticipating and being like, okay, if I don't hit the goal, because if you don't hit the goal on Kickstarter, you don't get any money. So I have to be like willing to say, okay, I'm $5,000 short. I'd put my own credit card down and buy my own book and pay the Kickstarter fees on my own $5,000, but just to make sure the Kickstarter goes through. So I didn't know. I mean, I honestly was like, this could go really well or it could go really poorly. And obviously we're in a time right now where the economy is like a little volatile and people are like tightening up their purse strings a little bit. And so I wasn't sure if people were going to be willing to spend $70 on a book or buy more books or, whatever, but people showed up and Montana showed up. Obviously majority of the people that are buying these books are from Montana. I do have some people, I made it available overseas and try to keep the shipping costs as low as possible. I'll probably lose money on those, but it's worth it. But I think I have like 10 going to the UK, which is, didn't know I had a big UK audience. And I have like a couple going to the Netherlands, one to Germany. So I'll have some cool international. It'd be fun just to see it going overseas. Like even if I lose some money on it, it's just fun to see that. But yeah, the result and the response to it has been, so heartwarming to me, to having spent, really this book has been in my like thought process for as long as I've been shooting. I've wanted to do a book, and this really kind of tightening down and working on the book at least the last 2 summers where I'm like, I need to go shoot this because I need it for the book. And like, there was 2 events last summer. I shot the Smith River and I shot canoeing Upper Missouri Breaks. And those were 2 big items that I was like, I can't produce the book without. And the other one I was going to do that I was really hoping was going to work out and just kind of fell through last minute was doing a mule pack trip into the Bob. So that'll have to be for edition 2. But last summer was kind of like driving around going, this is the last summer. I got to get it done. If it doesn't get done this summer, it's not going in the book for this edition. And so, it's been a long time coming, and it was a lot of worry and stress of like, did I just waste so many years thinking about this book, working on this book, putting together this book, laying it out, and then, so much time spent finding printers and finding manufacturers and distribution warehouses and like doing things that I've never done before.
Yeah, it's all the stuff that most people don't even know about behind the scenes, how difficult those challenges are, I bet.
No, not at all.
What was, in this, are people going to be able to get like signed copies of the book as well?
Yeah, so there is an option on the Kickstarter right now. There's like only 30 left. I did a limited edition run of first 100 books. They're going to be numbered and signed.
Awesome.
And same thing. I had no idea if anybody was going to want those and be willing to pay more money for those than the actual book. But 75 of the 100 are already gone.
Wow.
Wow.
So that was really cool to see, because they're like, the cost of that is more than the cost of doing a 2-pack of books. So I guess my signature is worth double. So so that's really cool. But then I'm hoping that going forward, once the book is in hand, I'm hoping to kind of do maybe a little mini book tour, go to some bookstores, or, I want to go to places that have never seen a book tour before, like a place like Malta. Probably never had a book tour there before.
That would be great.
And have a bookstore. And so, I'd like want to do it at the brewery and just drink beer with people and sign books. And I think it would just be fun, even if 5 people showed up. So
that would be great.
I think, that's kind of the next phase after this is over, after the Kickstarter is over, getting the books in hand, and then doing like launch parties and book parties, and, just taking the show on the road.
Wow. I have a thing for grain elevators. Okay.
Love me a grain elevator.
Are there any sweet grain elevator shots in there?
There is there's at least 2. There's the Wilsaw one in Wilsaw, of course. One in Hobson. And I feel like there's more. Oh, there's some grain elevators in Glasgow, like downtown, that I've got some cool shots of.
Wow.
I think there's more, but those are the ones that stand out in my brain right now.
We had some grain elevators here. We're actually right by the tracks. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a train going by us right now. And there used to be these really cool old grain elevators here. I'm originally from Southern Nevada. And when I moved up here, I don't know why, but those are just not something we have in Nevada. Number one, you don't have grain elevators. And anywhere I went I don't know, it is a travel around Montana, and you see these old, just super old grain elevators. I don't know why there's something about them. I'm super bummed that we got these ones torn down here. I was able to get, good old Rick Hamilton, he owned our Ace Hardware here at the time, which was across the street from the grain elevator. They went over there, and there was these big heavy belts with the grain scoops on them, those metal buckets on belts. And they asked the guys tearing them down, "Hey, what are you guys going to do with those?" They're like, "We're going to throw them away." And they're like, "Oh, well, can we get a bunch of those?" They pulled them across the street and cut them into sections. Cool. And so I have one now in my house hanging on the wall, and I have like old antique books in the scoops. They were selling them as planters. Cool. But yeah, just to have that piece of that history, I'm glad we were able to get that. But it kind of saddens me as time goes on. I know there's safety concerns, or I don't know why they're tearing all these things down, but I don't know. It's Montana, it's Americana, and it's kind of disappearing. So I'm glad you captured some of that.
Yeah, they are really neat. I love them too. And there's so many cool, unique ones, and there's so many unique backgrounds to them, and they're all different. And there's actually, going back to Malta, the brewery in Malta is right across from the train tracks and across from their grain elevators. And the bar at the Blue Ridge Brewing in Malta is made from a torn down grain elevator. So they tore down like one of them at least. They still have some up there, but they at least tore one of them down, and the bar in there is made of that. And it's really cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Anything stand out? I mean, what is, if you can think of one experience shooting that book, is there one location that stands out that was a kind of a more special experience?
Oh gosh, so many. Honestly, a lot of I know I'm known for my landscapes, but a lot of the cultural stuff, the rodeos and the powwow stuff, have always been really special for me. There's 2 powwows in particular that are in the book, Crow Fair, and then one up in Fraser, Montana, which is up on the Fort Peck Reservation outside of Glasgow. And that's the Red Bottom celebration. And that one was really unique because I did it for a shoot, and I was there, and I was like one of the only white guys there. There was a couple of farmers that were there, but for the most part, it's a very local powwow.
That's how you know you're a good one. You're one of the only white guys there.
And everybody was so nice to me, and everybody was like so welcoming, and there was like a CBS documentary crew that was like filming some TV thing there, and their film guys were all great. Their like host was a flaming douchebag, but because I told all the film guys, "Hey guys, like I'm shooting stills, so if I get in your way at all, like just let me know and I can stand somewhere else." and they were all really nice, but their host was just kind of like very egotistical. And then they all left at like 7 p.m. Like once the sun hadn't even set yet, and they all drove back to Glasgow to go stay in their hotels and stuff. And that powwow went until like, I think 1 or 2 in the morning, and I stayed up the whole night and I camped on the powwow grounds. And I remember like one of the powwow host was like, came over to me and he's like, hey, you got to drive back to Glasgow tonight? And I said, no, I'm camping here with you guys. And he was like, oh, you're getting like the proper real powwow experience. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'll come see you for breakfast in the morning and we'll hang out and trade stories. And I'd rather do it that way and kind of actually embrace it versus just being a fly on the wall.
And you said you went to Crow Fair. What was that like?
I've done Crow Fair. I mean, growing up in Billings, I went a couple times growing up. And then I went back in 2019 for the first time as an adult, and it was an amazing experience. And I actually got to stay in a teepee that was put up by Absoluta Glamping. It was amazing. They like set up this like probably the comfiest bed I've ever slept in, like a real queen size bed in the teepee. And this woman, she runs, she's Crow, and she runs kind of like a I don't know, a retreat or like you can go stay in her teepees, and I think it's like an Airbnb thing or whatever. But anyway, she was just getting it off the ground. She's wonderful. And so she set up the teepee like in her family's spot. So, I got to stay up late with them, hearing the elders tell stories, and just got to like really, really just embrace it. And then got to sleep in this really plush bed, which felt kind of weird, but it's like sleeping in that. And then, just listening to, I went to bed pretty late, and even like just throughout the night, just listening to singing and drums and just the whole night. And then I went back again 2 years ago, just camped in my van on the property or on the fairgrounds, and still amazing. And, I know probably one of the only white guys that actually camps there and like fully just stays out there. I know a lot of people just come up for Billings for the day and then leave and go back. And I'm like, no, to really embrace the experience of powwow, you got to sleep there and, be there at night and walk around in the morning and do the whole thing.
Yeah. Have you, Milo, been at Crow Fair ever?
I have not.
So we went in 2018. So I'd been taking pictures for like 4 years, and I went to Crow Fair for the day and took the kids when they were really little and my wife and same thing. Like Andy said, it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever seen. And, I've got to go luckily to some other places and see other festivals and other things like that from native peoples of different countries and stuff. But there's just something about Crow Fair that is just, I don't know, dude, it is so cool.
It is. And
when, I can't remember his name, but he was a Vietnam vet, and he comes in first with the American flag and then the Absaroka flag, and does his dance in full like Vietnam era Army class A's, and
wow,
it is went right from there from the get go, and it is just after that it's just amazing. And then the horse games that they have in the evening, you should really go. It's an experience.
It's a really fun rodeo too. It's on the Indian Finals, National Finals Rodeo, the INFR rodeo circuit. And man, those cowboys can ride. And last time I shot it 2 years ago, man, I just like some of those. One of my more favorite rodeos I've ever been to is their rodeo, and it's kind of separate from the powwow. It's like a little ways down the street, got to drive to it, but it's kind of a unique experience to like have such a powerful event, and then like right down the road you have like an amazing rodeo, and it's just a fun weekend. And it's a lot of people don't go, and I think even the first time I went in 2019, I was doing it as part of a job, and so many people asked me like, well, are like outsiders welcome? And it's like, they're welcome. They are. And like they're like, and not only welcome, but like I've never in all my years going to Crow Fair had any sort of incident with people being like, hey, go back, or like, whatever. I think I had some like young teenage kids one time ribbing me a little bit and giving me shit, and they're like, oh, where are you from? And I said Billings, and they're like, oh. All right. Welcome to Crow Fair.
You're going to say back east so they could.
Right. And they're
waiting for me to say something different, but
they do joke around a little bit. I know like the PA, when they're doing something in between dances and stuff like that, he'll make some kind of joke about the white photographers or something like that.
Oh man, I got it on, at the
great.
Red Bottom celebration, and it was the funniest thing. I was like, it was earlier in the day, and I was walking past the announcer's booth, and like the announcer goes, "Oh, hey, look, it's our token white guy. He's here to take your photo."
That's great. That's
and
great.
I just kind of like waved. I kind of turned around, and he's just laughing, and like, that's just like part of it, and that's like there's no ill will at it at all, and it's just
what time of year is that?
It's in August. I think it's like the second or third weekend in August, I think.
Yeah, man.
And then like August 8th and 9th, or that whole week, second week in August or something like that.
Wow. Cole and I were like, I mean, we get way into history, and we both just read this book called Memoirs of a White Crow Indian. And it's the story of Thomas LaForge. And fascinating book, and it's just neat because he's covering our whole area. Him and his family came by wagon in like 1866, 1867. They end up in Bozeman, and then he's like probably 17 years old, and he just falls in with the Crow, and he just becomes Crow, and he just he just embraced all of their culture. He wrote this book in the 1930s with Thomas Marcus, and An Amazing Life. Just saw so many epic things, and so
check it out. I love history. I used to be a travel guide. I used to be a guide in Yellowstone, and that was always my favorite thing was history and like just getting deep into it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like the obscure weird stories like that is totally up my alley, where when I was guiding with my guests, I would like not only just telling them like these little well-known stories, but trying to find those like hidden little gems of like how something was named, or just some funny stories, or whatever it is, and like those were so much more fun than just like well, Thomas Moran came and painted this, and it's like, yeah, we all know that, like that's not an obscure thought, like but start talking about some of the expeditions and like some of the weird people that were coming in during those times. So I love it. I'll take that book out. That sounds right up my alley.
It makes all the experiences richer, and it is a really good book. Fascinating. In fact, we just got done reading it, and then I think it was last night I drove out past Absaroka to just past where the old Crow agency, the second Crow agency used to be. And I just finished this book. We talked with Penny. We had her and we do a series with her on local history here. And then we just talked about, because in that book, Penny had brought that up, right? About them getting into a battle just up the valley up here with the Sioux.
With the Sioux, they were coming down to steal horses. Right? Yeah, the agency wasn't even completely built yet. They had built the corrals and a couple of the houses just for the agent and a few of the families that started going in. And the Sioux came down the Stillwater and tried to steal a bunch of horses. And
so as I'm driving along, I'm like looking for Mexican Joe Creek, because she's like, yeah, it's still named Mexican Joe Creek, but one of the guys in their group, they were out cutting wood. They got into this shootout with the Sioux, and then one of them, they're like, hey, I think Mexican Joe, he got shot off his horse back there. Well, after the fight, they all went back and looked for him. They never did find his body. And then it was about a year later, they found his remains about a mile down the creek. And so this is in probably 75, I think, or 70, no, probably like 1873 or 4, somewhere in that range. But it's still named Mexican Joe Creek to this day, about that guy. And I like knowing the stories behind those things, because just like I say, as you're driving along, it just brings the history brings the place alive. It makes it a more richer experience to know that history. So
there's a peak in Southwest Montana and a cabin associated with it called Bloody Dick Peak, which that one's, and I can't remember the story, but it's like it's something to do with a guy named Dick, and he like got shot or something, and like
get that name now.
So there's a Forest Service cabin and a mountain named it, and I really need to go climb it one of these days, just because it's Bloody Dick Peak.
I mean, who doesn't want to say I climbed to the top of Bloody Dick?
Yeah,
exactly. You got to say it.
Oh, dude. 100%. Yeah, that's a picture book. You need a picture book.
It's got to be. I mean, that's got to be an edition 2 of the book. Has to have Bloody Dick Peak.
Yeah, right.
Just so I can put that in my book without like tricking our censor or anything. I mean, like, yep, that's Bloody Dick.
Yeah. Slide it in there. You got everybody saying it.
There's a couple of people in the comments here on the live that have asked again. What's the name of the book?
It's called Montana Photographs from the Last Best Place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I'm going to have to get that. It's going to have to sit on my coffee table. It's going to be a good one. I'm looking
Yeah, it's
forward
really
to
nice. I had I worked with a designer out of Helena, Goodson Designs, and he's awesome. And he basically kind of redrew the Montana State seal. Because I don't know if you ever looked really closely at our seal. It's actually pretty ugly, and it looks like it was drawn by a kindergartner. But the concept is really cool. It's like, Ori Plata, gold and silver. It's got the river. It's in the mountains. It's got the pickaxe. It's got the sun. It's cool. But like the design of our actual seal is like horrendously ugly. And so I had this idea of putting that on the cover. Obviously my camera quality is terrible, but like this is the seal because I'm selling these hats too. But and I had my designer, I was like, hey, I have this idea to put the seal on the cover. And I did it. I opted to not put a photo on the cover, which I think confused some people. They're like, you have a photo book and there's no photo on the cover. And to me, it was because I'm representing the 6 very distinct regions of Montana. So how do I pick one photo? How do I say, like,
that makes
obviously sense. If I wanted the most jaw-droppingly gorgeous landscape photo that probably is going to make all the tourists buy it, I'd use a photo from Glacier, but then if I was to use a photo that's like most special to me, I'd probably use like Bighorn Canyon or something like that. And it's not going to have the name recognition of like, those like touristy areas. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And I don't want to do a collage. And so I was like, what if I did the state seal of Montana? And so the book is actually going to be like a blue Irish linen cover. And then the seal is in a gold foil on the cover. And then
I saw that you had it open in TikTok and you were going through pages, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It looked sharp. It looked classy.
Yeah. So I have so that's going to be that. And then it's going to be in gold foil and it's going to look really classy and clean. And then it was funny. So originally it was just a seal. And then I was talking to my designer and I went and met with him in Helena, super good guy. And he had like a drawing of a bird, like a crow or something that he had done for a different poster. And his style is really unique. He's got like a very like Western Art Deco, kind of like not Art Deco, like Western block art, kind of like a timeless style. It's been around for a long time, which I also really liked. And so I was looking at like a poster he had designed or a drawing or something, and it had a crow on it, and it was really unique. And I was like, wait, what if we put the meadowlark, our state bird, on the seal, like sitting on top of the seal? And he was like, that'd be cool. So it's like the seal with the meadowlark on it, and it's like a really unique. But I wanted it to be kind of timeless because you see some of these old photo books, and they're like, they get dated because you look at the cover and it's like, all right, that photo was taken 20 years ago, and it's very obvious it was taken 20 years ago. And I wanted something that like transcended time to where this book, obviously ordering 3,000 copies, I might be sitting on these for a long time. And so I want them to be as relevant in 10 years as they are right now, which is kind of why I wanted to do that different kind of style cover. And once again, looking classy and looking nice in a $20 million house, but also looking good and, not.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a good choice. I think thinking about it that way is timeless, because I see those all the time where you're just like, you can really pick the era of when things have come out.
You can.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
They and then like the back cover is really cool too. I haven't shown off the back cover as much as I should. The back cover, he got a little more wild and crazy with it. Like he got really kind of Western art in it, and like big frame and like a lot more. It's got the state of Montana on it. And so if people wanted something a little more crazy, they can always flip it to the backside, and it's got a little more wild. And that's also gonna be gold foil. So it's gonna pop a little more and be a little more fun. But the front's like real clean and elegant, and the back is like a little more wild, and said go for it.
Oh man, yeah, it looked sharp when you were opening it. I was watching all those pictures as you were flipping through it. There was it had a wide range. I'm glad it wasn't just all landscapes. There was beautiful landscapes, but I think you really captured the culture just from being able to see what's going on in there. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. Yeah. How did you get on this path of doing this though? How did you get into photography?
For that question, I'm going to need more whiskey.
All right. What are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking an Old Forester 1920s Prohibition era.
Nice.
Yeah, classic. It was a gift from my brother-in-law for driving him to the hospital when he had kidney stones.
Yeah. Oof.
From the breaks. We were hunting in the breaks together, and we thought his appendix burst. And
Oh my gosh.
I hit 120 driving those dirt roads out of the breaks to get to Lewistown because we thought his appendix burst and he was going to die.
Oh
and then
my
turns out
God.
it was just really bad kidney stones, which still was really bad because I then had to drive him to Billings because he had to get a stent put in, and it wasn't
Oh,
fun.
mackerel.
Thank you, Jeff, for my
Good thing it
brother-in-law,
wasn't
Paul.
raining. Good thing it wasn't raining, then it breaks.
Oh,
That
I
day.
would have been stuck. We would have been like, well, I'm taking your appendix out. I got a knife in my pocket.
Yeah.
We'll take that out ourselves.
Yeah, I think it was last year, and I didn't draw a tag for the breaks, and so I was like, you know what, no bow hunting up there this year. I'm just gonna take the camera. I ended up spending most of my time at Slippery Ann, and I couldn't even. So I don't camp down low. I camp up on top, and because there's just there's some landscape up on top, and I'll but so my wife and I, we just car camp up there, and it started raining. And it was like 2 a.m. and I'm like, babe, we should probably move at least to the edge of the
there
road.
now.
Yeah. And
You live there now.
yeah.
I mean, luckily it dries out pretty quick, but man, that gumbo is no joke.
I mean, it had only been raining for 30 minutes. And I mean, I've been to the breaks a ton. So I mean, I'm not an idiot, but it had only been raining for 30 minutes. And I'm like, crap. Now we got to get up. Everything was outside because, of course, in Montana, it's not supposed to rain at that time of year. And when we went to bed, I took pictures of the Milky Way. Okay, so it was like midnight, 1 o'clock, and I was taking pictures of the Milky Way. Went to bed, and I wake up at 3 a.m. to a freaking downpour, and I'm like, shit, we got to get stuff packed up, throwing all this wet stuff on our sleeping bags that's in the back of the Sequoia, and it took us 10 minutes to go 30 yards to get to the edge of the road and then fall back to sleep. But that's the type of gumbo that's up there. It's
no joke.
Awesome.
It is awesome. It's a whole different world when you get in that gumbo, and I've on many occasions just been like watch the weather, and then like got it rain, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna, sit here and wait until it dries tomorrow.
Yep.
So how I got started in photography, because we've kind of ADHD'd around this, or I've ADHD'd around it, which is fairly typical for me.
Well, I'm wondering, has it been kind of a lifelong thing? Did you do it when you were younger, or did you discover it when you were older?
ADHD or photography?
Oh.
Look, I would say both are lifelong, and I think the photography is because of the ADHD.
Right.
I can't sit still or think straight.
I get it.
So the photography part of it, I always grew up with a camera. I always had a point and shoot film camera, trained on whatever was happening. Like I grew up, I grew up like halfway between Billings and Laurel. And I grew up it was funny because I grew up in a neighborhood, but now that neighborhood is like surrounded by other neighborhoods. But at the time it was just a neighborhood surrounded by dirt. And because of that, we were out in the middle of kind of nowhere. I went to like a small K-8 school. So like, there was 200 kids in my whole school, which I know is probably more than Columbus, but like for Billings people, it's a very small school. And, so I grew up like kind of in this weird blend of country and not country, where it's like you had a neighborhood. There wasn't anything close to us. The Zoo Drive exit is now close to that neighborhood, but didn't exist when I was growing up. And so we were kind of just in this like weird little era of, obviously you come back when the streetlights are on, but we didn't have streetlights. And so we just did shenanigans. We would like, the empty dirt lots next to our neighborhood. We were there building bike ramps and dirt tracks and whatever.
That sounds like my childhood right there.
It was awesome. And like, I'm so happy. Like it's funny because like now looking back on it, I'm so happy I grew up that way. But like growing up, when I got to high school and I went to Billings West, which is like the biggest high school in the States, like a couple thousand kids or whatever. It was a culture shock for me to grow up and go like, all of a sudden, like, whoa, I'm in the city. But like going to high school and meeting people who hadn't that grew up in Billings proper and were able to walk to Taco Bell or walk to the mall or do stuff, right? Like that I was not able to do because I needed a car to get anywhere. Even on a bike, it was 10 miles to try and 20 miles to try and get into town, and like, on non-bike friendly roads. So like, I wasn't doing that and I wasn't allowed to do that. But looking back on it, I'm grateful. But at the time I was like, man, I'm kind of jealous. All these friends of mine like grew up being able to like go to the mall and like walk around with your friends or go to the spot pizza.
That's important. Yeah, that's exactly. Like, I think that's what the other kids are doing. That's what I should be doing.
Yeah, I was like, man, they can go to the mall whenever they want. They can go to Taco Bell. They can go to, go get food and like whatever. They go to Pickle Barrel. Like, that's so cool. And like, I wasn't doing that. The closest thing to me was the Market Basket, which was like 5 miles away. And the Market Basket now is a much bigger gas station, but at the time was like literally the tiniest little gas station market of like, you could get a Reese's peanut butter cup and that was about it. But growing up that way, I always carried a little point and shoot film camera. And it was just kind of like a hobby to document my friends doing stupid shit and also doing it myself. But, like jumping things, skateboarding. Then we got a little bit older and one of the parents in the neighborhood decided it was a good idea to buy their son a go-kart. It might have been my dad. I can't actually remember if it was my dad first. But there was it was a great era because there was probably like 5 or 6 kids in my neighborhood, like boys my age in my neighborhood. And so next thing you know, we all had go-karts and we were just like, the neighborhood was like kind of a figure 8. And so we would just literally race go-karts to the neighborhood. And, most people were working during the day. And so like during the summer breaks, everybody was at work, including my own parents. And we just had like free reign of the neighborhood. And there was one there was like one retired guy across the street and he hated us. And like looking back on it now, I'm like, I could totally see why you hated us. Like we were just like unruly, like, middle school boys racing go-karts at 30 miles an hour through this neighborhood. And, he would like stop us and he was like, you guys need to use turn signals and you just stop at stop signs. And we're like, we don't need to do that. Like, who cares? And he's like just trying to get us, make sure he's the only adult in the entire neighborhood. And he's going to be like, yep, they all died. But, so like I always photographed my friends growing up and I always like would do that stuff. And then I never thought like I was going to take it further than that. Like I never was like I'm going to be a photographer when I grow up. I wanted to be a marine biologist for the longest time. Growing up nowhere near an ocean, I don't know why. That looks cool, because I feel like as most Montanans who grew up here, your like dream is to like run away and go somewhere else, because you don't realize how great Montana actually is. And you're like, I want to go and I want to live in a big city and I want to go do city things. And like, I don't know, but I was like, I want to be a marine biologist. And so that obviously didn't pan out.
So I didn't grow up here, but because I look at it like I always say it's like a mystical place to outsiders, but I can see it. I can see the kids that grow up here and then I can see it, but man, I think it's just a no-brainer to me that once you get out there, if you're going to live back here in the US, this is the place.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like
I shouldn't say that. Sorry.
No, but it is true because when I was getting out of the Air Force, I had planned a career, but after being gone for 4 years, I missed Montana so much that I was like, it's not worth a career to miss what my home has. And that last time, because I ended up being stationed in southern Oklahoma and then driving back up here, the last time that I never had to go back, unless I chose to, coming up I-90 and coming into Montana from Wyoming, driving through Wyoming, it's like, whatever, we give Wyoming
the I-90 section is not the greatest Wyoming.
Yeah, we give Wyoming a lot of shit, but I love Wyoming too.
I love Wyoming. Yeah. I choose to give all of my shit to North Dakota.
Yeah, me too. But that last time, and my wife and I were dating, and I'm like at the time, and I'm like, look, going back to Montana, this is where I'm going to live. My life's going to be here. You can come with me. If it doesn't work, I'll do whatever it takes to get you where you want to go. But I'm going home. And she's like, I'll go with you. See if it works. 20 years later, she's still up here. Oh, and today she's driving to Lewistown for my daughter's softball tournament, which I can't go because I got, I had stuff planned before she made the team. She texts me and she's like, you would not believe how beautiful this coyote was that I saw just outside of Eddie's Corner. And I'm like, you are no longer Texan, baby.
Yeah.
You're Montanan.
Yeah, if you're mentioning Eddie's Corner and Sunsets,
Coyotes.
Excuse me, but then you're in.
I knew my wife had fully embraced Montana life because my wife's from the East Coast. She's from Connecticut, and I plucked her out of there. I like to joke that I had to outsource because the goods are odd, and they're like not good. But like usually you say like the odds are good, but the goods are odd. But like the odds aren't good, and they're also odd. So like dating in this state was always tough. But
that's true.
I'm just learning something about my wife. She's in the comment section and she's like, that's what I wanted to be, a marine biologist. I'm like, how do I not know that?
The more you know.
Yeah.
But my wife is from Connecticut and she lived out here for 5 years now. And I told her at one point, I was like, look, at some point in your Montana life, it's going to be doing the most outlandish weather you've ever seen. I mean, I am talking hailing sideways and trampolines are blowing by. And somebody will non-jokingly say, well, we need the moisture. And she's like, haha, whatever. And then at work, she was like at work like later that year or something. And she's at work and it was sure as shit, like pissing sideways and just like torrential winds and downpours and like crazy, like kind of like thunder, snow, sleet, rain all at the same time. And she's like looking at it and being like, oh, and then somebody literally just looks out the window and goes, well, we need the moisture. And then it was like, I don't know, years later, it was doing something like that. And sure enough, like, she's just like, well, we do need the moisture and it should help a fire season. And I'm like, she wasn't prompted at all. And I was like, welcome to Montana. You are now one of us. You have joined the club.
Yeah. My wife's the same way. And today when she texted me about this coyote, I was like, yeah, you've made it. Yeah. And it probably helps the fact that I drag her along on, all these photography trips and stuff too. But yeah, and I'm like, I text her and I'm like, you're in Montana now, baby. It only took however long. But the last time I drove up from the military and knew I didn't have to leave again. And, I've been dating my wife for like 6 months at the time. And we passed the border, says, welcome Montana. It's, the typical sign that we have there coming north on I-90. And like, I was trying to hold back tears and I couldn't, dude. I'm just like, they're running down my face. And she's like looking at me. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm home, baby. That's all I said. And then I didn't say another word until we got to like, probably Crow Agency. I didn't say another word to her. And I'm like, I'm home. And I've gotten to go. It's a special place. There's just something here that, I've got to do a little bit of traveling and go to different places. But even like by the time, 3 weeks is up or whatever, it's when I step in the airport in Bozeman or step on the airport in Billings from being gone, it's like, oh, I'm home. And it is.
The older I get, the more that's becoming evident where it's just like, I'm so, like I love traveling so much and it's such a big part of my life. But it also just makes me appreciate coming home more than anything. Coming back and being back and doing this. And anyway, so we'll jump back to photography and kind of where that took me. So if you were to ever like flow chart how I speak, it would just it would just be a spider web of random things.
You're in the right place.
You were in the right place.
I don't know if you've watched any previous podcasts, but we do, dude.
Macro world.
Last night we started about dire wolves
in Yellowstone.
And we went through a whole he questioned me on if we should reintroduce dire wolves to Yellowstone, and we ended on.
I don't know, man.
Dude, what the hell were we talking about? I don't even remember.
We were on to tariffs and
tariffs. Yeah.
What's China going to do now? I don't even know. We were all over the place, man.
So you're in the right place.
You're at home.
Perfect. So growing up, kind of always had a camera. Never really was more than that. Just a little point and shoot, like either a film camera or like when I got a little bit older, I got like a Sony CyberShot or like a 3 megapixel camera.
So I'm interested in this though. You had the point and shoot. Okay. Now, I'm not that old, but I'm obviously older than you. But you're obviously in the era of like video cameras and like those things are readily there. Like, what was it about a still camera versus like a bunch of teenage boys running around with the little, Sony camera they had?
Totally. I don't know. I always liked stills. I always just felt like it was really fun to capture stuff. But I also, and it's kind of like I should have known at this point in time that I was going to be destined to be a photographer. Is I like to set up a shot, right? Like I was like, oh, let's jokingly Like one of the vivid memories, and I keep saying this for years. I've got to go back into my parents' like huge freaking thing of photos, and because I don't know where any of these film photos I took are. Like I wish I did, because it'd be cool for my story to be like, I shot this when I was 6.
Yeah.
But I don't know where like any of those photos are. But I vividly remember this one incident where my buddy Cameron was on his bike, and I was like, we should stage a bike crash photo. And so he was like, yeah. So like ran in the house, and I got a bunch of ketchup, and I ran back outside, and we like put the bike on top of him, and then just squirted ketchup all over him. Which I'm sure his parents were just like, he comes home and it's just like his shirt is just stained with ketchup. And I'm like just squirting ketchup all over him. And I'm just down there like getting all these little still shots and like, you know, staging.
He smells like a backyard barbecue. I can't imagine the smell.
So like I should have known then and there that I was destined to be a photographer, because I'm setting up a shoot, you know, like I'm setting up, you know, like a model, and
you're not capturing the moment, you're creating the moment.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, and I always like, I had friends that did the video stuff, and it just never was for me. And you know, to this day, like clients still hire me to shoot video, and I'm like, don't do that. Like I promise you, it's not worth it. Like what they'll do is they'll hire me to shoot stills, which is great because that's what I'm good at. And then they'll be like, can you shoot some reels? And I'm like, yes, I'll happily shoot reels. I like shooting reels. They're fun. The reason why I think I'm successful on TikTok and reels and video is because I'm an ass videographer. And so like, I am not going to shoot and log. I'm not going to color grade this. I'm not really concentrating on how these edits look. I'm not dropping to the beat. And then they do 1 million views. And I think that like, I tell my clients this all the time, like, I just did the shoot in Quebec, and this like 10-day snowmobiling shoot, and they wanted a bunch of B-roll video. And I was like, great. I don't even own a gimbal. You're not getting stabilized footage. You're not getting log footage. You're not getting color graded footage. You're not getting any of this. You're going to get some iPhone footage mixed with some drone footage, mixed with some camera footage. And if you don't like that, that's what I offer. And obviously stills. That's what I was there for. So it's fun, but video just never really appealed to me.
How do they take that?
They love it. They're like, and I just tell them, like, you know, if you want real production value video, we have to hire a crew, which is going to be a lot more money. It's going to be a lot more guys. And I do a lot of that too. I work with a lot of different videographers and filmmakers and rad folks who are good at that. And that is what they do. And they're going to tell an amazing story. And so I tell my clients, I'm like, if you want that, we hire that in addition to hiring me as a photographer. I'll shoot your stills. You guys worry about video. If you just want some reels and some like fun, random stuff, sure, happily do it. So that never appealed to me. And then, I went off to college, and I had no formal training or anything. I just kind of still liked to carry a camera. And then in 2010, I went with my dad to Southern Africa for the first time. And it was funny because we were there for a nonprofit that my dad and I were working on at the time. And I looked at it as this amazing opportunity, which it was, but I looked at it as an amazing opportunity as a photographer, because I'm like, oh, I'm a photographer. I take photos. This is going to be incredible. You know, every photographer dreams of going on safari in Africa. I'm like, this is going to be incredible, right? And it was personally an incredible trip. Photographically, my photos are horrendously bad. And I was actually pissed about it, right? Like, photos are out of focus. Photos are blurry. And like, that was the first DSLR I'd ever had. My dad handed me down a Canon 30D.
Nice.
Not a camera, but it's a camera. And I was grateful for it, with a 28-135 kit lens. And you know, he's like, go hog wild, because he'd upgraded to something better. He gives me that camera. I'm like, yeah, here we go. And I shoot the whole thing on auto mode, no idea what I'm doing. And sure enough, the safari photos and like the wildlife, they're blurry, they're out of focus, they're motion blur, they're just like, colors suck, the light sucks, all of it's just terrible. And I remember coming home and being like pissed about it, because I'd been in Africa for a month and I had maybe like 20 half decent photos to show for it. And it was at that point that I woke up that I was not a photographer and that I was not like this, right? So instead of just being discouraged and just being like, I'm going to hang it up, I was like, I want to learn how to take photos, because not for any sort of like, I want to make money at this or I want to do this for a living or anything like that. It was mostly just because I loved traveling and I loved the outdoors, and I wanted to better document these things to be able to try and share that with people. Because when I come back from my trips, people, this is obviously in the pre-social media days. Facebook was in its infancy. This was back in the days where you go out with your friends for a night and you post 50 photos from, the night of shenanigans.
Right.
And so I got back from someone else and I posted, I don't know, 200 photos in a gallery that are probably still on my Facebook page if you scroll back far enough. And it was just like, okay, I want to learn how to do this just so I could better share with friends back home what this looks like, right? Like what these photos look like, what these places look like, what these animals look like, what these people look like, just what is happening. So I did that. And so I started watching YouTube videos on, how to take better photos. And I took a class at MSU that was like Intro to Digital Photography. The class sucked, but the best thing it did was it got me out, because it forced me to go out and shoot, which was the best part about that class. Right. So it forced me to go out and learn and because I was going to school and I was also playing football. And so my free time was none. And so during the season, it forced me to still go out in my little bit of free time I had to go out and take photos of, Highlight Canyon or the Bridgers or
that's 3/4 of the battle right there, is just having the right motivation and the right something that pushes you out there to go capture those moments.
Yeah. So then 2010 was when I did that Africa trip. And then it was 2011, I started learning a little more. And then in 2012, I had taken some photos of Bobcat Stadium at sunset because I had special access, because it was after a summer workout and it was this cool sunset. I took this photo and I had made a Facebook page for myself and people were following it and it was cool. And then all of a sudden I started getting people were messaging me and being like, hey, I want to buy that photo. And I'm just a broke student athlete, and I'm like, I don't have $5 to rub together. And I can't going to the movies with my friends, a financial decision, right? People being like, hey, you want to go to La Prairie and get a burrito? And I'm like, yeah, let me look at my wallet. No. And so I'm just a broke student athlete, and my life was football in school, and I had a pass to go to the dining room as many times as I wanted to go to, and that's where I ate. And going out, I would pre-eat to go out with my friends, right? My friends were like, hey, I want to go get dinner, and I would go to the dining hall first, eat first, then go out with my friends, so that I wouldn't eat as much. I was also a 300-pound offensive lineman, so me going to sushi was probably not a wise choice, right? So people were like, hey, we want to buy this photo from you. And I'm like, why? You want to buy this? And they're like, yeah, we want to buy this photo. I'm like, cool. What do you charge? And I'm like, I don't know, $60. And they were like, great. And so people were buying these photos, and I was like, all right, I should probably start a website and build a website. And I'd had experience with a little bit of coding. Obviously grew up with MySpace, so I knew how to code from MySpace. Really should bring that back with kids. Hey, you got to learn how to code. You can put music on your profile and have a cool background on your MySpace profile. So I built a website, spent a bunch of time. I mean, MySpace was the most cutthroat social media of all time. You had to choose your top 8 friends. Imagine doing that now.
Yeah, you could rank them. You had your top 8, but you could rank them all the way down into the very last one. And then you go to a party one night and that dude pissed me off. He's 30.
Yeah, you're well, nope. And then you always would watch people crush on a girl, and you'd watch their page, because if their boyfriend ever got moved off the top 8, you knew she was single. You're like, hey, window is open. Here we go. So I built a website, And I spent months doing this, like building a logo and a website. And I was like really excited to launch it. And I launch it. In the first like 24 hours, not like my book, I was like, I don't know. I made like a couple $100, and I was like, holy shit, I had like 10 sales. And I was like, man, this is awesome. Like I can make a bunch of money. And it was 2 days in, I got called into the compliance office at Montana State, and I've never got called in there in my life. And I'm like, I'm a good student. I'm always up on my NCAA regulations. And they call me in, and she's sitting there, she's looking at me, and she goes, so a friend of mine emailed me this website and said, hey, one of your football players started a photography business. It's really cool. And she's got it on the screen. She like swivels the screen towards me. I'm like, hey, that's my website. And she's like, yeah, this is really neat. You can't do this. And I was like,
What
do you mean I can't do this? And she goes, while you're playing football, the NCAA owns your name and likeness. And I was like, so like this whole stuff with the NIL stuff now, the name, image, likeness, like that's all the big rage now where like players are getting paid. If that had happened when I was playing, it would have been a life-changing experience for me because I could have just run my business.
Wow.
And so I was like, man, that sucks. I actually had to write an apology letter to the NCAA. I wish I still had it. Maybe in an email I do somewhere. I had to write an apology letter to the NCAA for using my own name and likeness.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
For a photography business that had really nothing to do with me playing football. I was just doing photos.
Completely separate.
But like they looked at it like, well, you could be siphoning donor like money from boosters or something for like, they're really just buying your photos because they're trying to support you. And it's like, I'm not that good of a football player that they are wanting to give me money. Like they're wanting to give me money because they want my photo. They don't give a shit about like, a second tier offensive lineman. So
I guess from their side of it, I guess they see all types of shenanigans, I mean,
like if you think about it, like let's say like Vince Young when he played for the Longhorns, like if he had started a photography business, even if it was like really shitty cell phone photos, and all of a sudden he's making $1 million a year through a photography business.
Yeah,
it's a little different than some offensive lineman from Montana State, and of course the rules are and were set up for all levels of NCAA.
Wouldn't you love though to see whoever that was that read your apology? They're over there like,
I would love to see that apology letter. It was just like me being, and I was suspended for a week in the middle of the season. I had to sit out for a week. I could still practice and still do shit, but I was like a young buck too, so I don't think I was playing that weekend. So I was like, whatever. But
did it make you cooler on the team? Because you're like, yeah, I'm suspended.
No, I used to get a lot of shit. My friend, like my teammates were like some of my biggest supporters of my photography career when I was playing, but they also give me so much shit for it. They'd be like, photo boy over here. And like something cool would happen, and they'd like, they'd be like, hey, did you get a picture of that? I'm like, I'm in uniform right now. I'm not shooting. So I asked the NCAA, or I asked my compliance officers, well, what can I do? Like, I'd like to run a business, even if it has nothing to do with football. And they said, well, you can use a pen name, you can use a fake name, or you can create a business name. So they're like, you can create a business name, but then like your website, you can't allude to the fact that you're a Montana State player. You can have your photo on there, you can have your name on there. You just have to have be generic. I'm like, okay. So I ran a business called Peak Photography of Montana for the last couple of years I was playing, and did that. And then my website was hilarious. I wish I had like a screenshot of it, because it was like a bunch of landscape photos and like some stuff. And then like the bio section, it was a photo of the back of my head, and I'm like taking a photo. And then it just said, hi, I'm Andy, period. I go to Montana State University. I'm a photographer. Like that was my bio. And so I had that for like 2 years. And then it was funny because during that time, my best selling prints were of the football stadium. And I had like these really cool empty stadium shots of like the sunset. And so like during that, like I wasn't making a lot of money. Literally people were buying like a 20 by 30 print for $60. I then drove from my apartment near campus all the way to Costco. I would pay like $30 to have it printed at Costco. and then I would drive to the UPS and ship it out, like roll it up and ship it out, buy the shipping tube, the whole thing. I think at the end of the day, I probably made like $15, $20. Not counting the literally like half hour to drive to Costco and back, plus ship it, plus wait for the print to get done. Like it's just like my income per hour was definitely minimum, like well below minimum wage.
Yeah.
And so, but I didn't see it as that. I was like, I just made $20. I can go get 2 burritos. So I was stoked.
That's how I would look at that too.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly how I still look at jobs. Like people will pay me, and it's now like thousands of dollars, and I'm like, ooh, that just paid for my new lens that I want, or that just paid. I just got a bison hide tanned, and that just paid for my bison hide. You know, like shit like that.
That's what I do. I just took pictures for one of the schools, and I'm like, that just paid for my new Osmo Pocket 3.
Yeah.
That's like totally how I look at everything I do. So
100%. And it's like still that has not changed. It's just it's in higher quantity and higher numbers now. Or it's like now I have to look at it as like, oh, that just paid my mortgage for the month. Great, you know. So, but yeah, it was funny because like during that time, people kept requesting. They were like, hey, we really love these empty stadium shots you've got, but like, couldn't we get a photo of the stadium when it's full, like at a game? And I want to email these people back and be like, I'm a little busy when those games are happening. I wish I could help you, but like I'm doing things. So I couldn't say that.
And you can't tell them what you're doing, right?
No. So I just was like, I'm working on it. And then I created a plan. And so in 2012 at the Gold Rush game, so obviously the whole stadium's full of, you know, gold t-shirts and everything. It's like probably the best time to do this. I talked to a buddy of mine who was on the film crew for Montana State. And he was up on like the big platform in the end zone. And I was like, hey man, if I give you my camera and I set it all up, there's an intervalometer on here. And all you got to do is you just got to press this button and lock it in when the game starts. Do that. And then when the game's over, unlock it and we'll call it a day. And he's like, yeah, I can do that. I don't give a shit. And so, so I did that. So he takes it up there. He puts it up. Game happens. After the game, I go retrieve my camera from him. And I basically I'd set it up to take a photo every 2 seconds for the entirety of the game. And so I ended up with a time lapse of the game, to which I then pulled like 4 or 5 stills out from different points. It was a night game. So it was like there was night photos or sunset photos, there was early game photos. And I pulled stills out and then I sold those. And then people were stoked. They're like, oh, finally you got some stadium shots like when there's fans in it. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, hey, next time, can you move around a little more and like get some other angles of the stadium? I'm like, no, this is what you get. You're not going to complain. You get a stagnant shot of the stadium.
Yeah. This sounds like some 80s movie where you're like, you know, the kid's trying to hide what he's really doing. I don't know what movie I'm thinking about, but you're sitting here trying to hide that you're trying to get your creative outlet, but you're this athlete and trying to follow the rules. And I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I mean, that's like that's honestly the shortest version I could probably tell of that.
You know what? It does show though that you're about to grind. You're actually about like, I don't know. You're about it. You're about the passion for it. You're gonna stick with it for the right reasons. I don't know. Yeah.
I like to think of it as creative problem solving.
Yeah.
And like that's kind of always, you know, so after that, after I graduated from MSU, I really had no life plan. You know, I had a degree in psychology, which I actually am very grateful for. My psych degree, I love it. Like it's super interesting. It was a thing I was really interested in. And I say, you know, people are always like, well, are you ever going to use your degree? And I'm like, I use it every day. I use it for marketing. I use it for social media when I'm creating a reel or I'm creating a photo or just working with clients. You know, that's all human relationships and it's all the human mind, which is what psychology is. And it's something super interesting to me. Still to this day, I'm still interested in it. And, you know, I never was in it for being a therapist. That's not for me. And I just liked it for the idea of like, how does the brain work? And like, how do people react to things? And like the entire Kickstarter was crafted off of psychology, right? Like, how do I create a movement? How do I create this idea? How do I tap into people's, want, like, and desire to want to be in a movement? And so it's like, it's all psychology. But graduating from college, obviously I couldn't make it off of $15 prints when I graduated. Like making $15 a day, $15 a month or whatever I was making. I was probably selling like 3 prints a month and making $15 on each one. So like, $45 a month was a little tough to pay the bills.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I spent like the next 9 months traveling, which sounds like a really counterproductive thing when you're broke. But I was trading photography for traveling. And so I had some projects, very loosely hosted projects that were like, hey, we'll host you. We won't pay you, but come to, like, I followed the coffee and cigar route down northern Nicaragua for a while. I hitchhiked across southern Africa for a month. I was in Norway for a little bit, just lived a very weird life. And it was at that point that I really realized that I love traveling, and I love traveling with no plan. And I loved like this idea of like showing up in a location without a hotel booked and just being like, I'll figure it out when I get there. And just like using my camera to trade for whatever I needed. And then I was really broke after that. And so I got a job working as a guide for a summer in Yellowstone, Tetons, and worked for a summer there. Made some money for the first time in my life, really. And then still was pretty broke. And then ended up succumbing to the pressures of life and getting a desk job, which honestly, like, looking back on it, was a really great move, because the desk job, while I was making like $15 an hour, and working in Billings again, I moved back to Billings, and I was working for Southeast Montana Tourism, and I was working for a tourism board doing their social media and public relations. And while I really found out that I do not belong behind a desk, I also learned so much about like the tourism industry and what it's like to be on the other side of the desk from, creatives, and what do these organizations need, and like kind of those sort of things. And so I was there for a year and a half, and, it was a good year and a half, and that was about as long as I can make it sitting behind a desk. And my office was a closet underneath the stairwell, and I shared it with my marketing director. And so full on Harry Potter was like,
that's what I was about to bring up there.
This is interesting, because who was your marketing director, and what year was this at the Southeast Montana?
It was
Southeast
Nick
Montana,
Mann.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, so I ended up doing a little bit of work with Southeast Montana, and they ended up buying one of my photos from Medicine Rocks and putting it on the billboard in Rapid City.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was at the same time you were there. That would be.
This would have been 2014, 2015.
Because it was like one of the first like photos that went big for me, and it kind of gave me a big head, like, holy shit, I have a photo of mine as a billboard.
Yeah.
It's like I fucking made. Oh shit, sorry, I made it. Because I have a photo of mine on a billboard out of state.
Are we not allowed to swear? Because I've been swearing.
Yeah. No, we're fine.
We're good.
Sometimes my parents. I'm 40 years old. Sometimes my parents come in and watch this.
We all have parents, right?
But no, I'm just kidding. That'd be crazy if you were there. And
I don't think I was. It was probably right after I left. So Brenda Mass was the next.
Brenda. Okay, so Brenda was the one that I worked with.
Brenda took over from Nick. So Nick, my marketing director, was there for like 9 years, and then after I left, he was like really burned out when I was there. Yeah, and I think he'd been looking for a reason to leave forever, and he was like, when I quit, he was like, "We can like quit, like we can leave." And so he ended up leaving. Kind of right afterwards, and like after I left, he was like, honestly, Andy, like I needed the motivation to like leave. Like he was like his dream was to move to Seattle, and he was like, I don't know why I didn't do it. And he's like, I just went and did it. So So Brenda, and who she just left. I don't know who's going to take over for her, but she just left.
Huh. Yeah. So she's the one that kind of got me in like, I can do this. I'm just not a point and shoot guy.
And that was like the best. The best thing that job did for me was give me such a passion for Eastern Montana, because even growing up in Billings, like I didn't go east that much. Like I had never been to Makosha growing up. I'd never been to Medicine Rocks. I'd never been to Terry Badlands. I'd never been like, other than like driving through it on 94, heading somewhere. I'd never been.
Yeah. I was the same way. And then I started hunting over there when we got tired of dealing with grizzly bears over in southwest Montana. So we started bow hunting in eastern Montana, and I fell in love with that place. Like I try to do a yearly trip, and I make a big loop, and I'll start over and go down 212, and then I'll end up around Busby, and then I'll keep going and go to Ashland and Broadus and go down Powder River. Then I'll come up, go up north and end up. Have you ever been to Capitol Rock?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Capitol Rock, and then I'll come back in all the back roads, and it's one of my dude. I love it. And then going to the Terry Badlands and standing on the sandstone bridges where Evelyn Cameron stood. It's just like, this is some of the coolest country in the entire world. It is, and people just drive by it and they're like,
Well, it's also just like it's home to some of the best human beings on the face of the earth. Like, it's such a special place, and it's like, when you go out there, it's like, you go, if I go to like Western Montana, if I go to, up to Kalispell or Whitefish or something, and I talk to people and they're like, what are you doing up here? And I'm like, oh, I'm just taking photos. There's almost kind of this get out mentality where it's like, I don't want you here. And, we're still really nice. I've met really nice people up there too, but man, in Eastern Montana, it's like you go out there and you talk to people. If you talk to somebody in Glasgow, or you talk to somebody in Ekalak or Baker or wherever, and you tell them what you're doing, you're like, why are you here? And it's like, I'm just here to take photos. And they're like, of our area? And it's like, and it's like,
why do you think that is? Why do you think?
Dude, I don't know.
People don't go out there, right?
No, they don't.
They don't do it, and they don't see the tourists, right? So like, obviously, like people in Kalispell and Whitefish have a reason to be a little more, apprehensive about tourists because they see so many, right? But like a place like Terry or Ekalak or Baker or Glasgow, Miles City even, they don't see tourists. So they're not burned out on tourists. And they understand that like, hey, these little tiny towns are dying, right? Like last time I was in Glendive last summer, I was like shocked that like half the storefronts in Glendive are just sitting empty, right? And these little towns are dying. And these people understand for the most part. I get a lot of flack from people online who are like, "Gosh, stop sharing Eastern Montana." And then I look at their page.
I do too.
What's funny to me is every time I look at their page, most of the time, 90% of the time, they're not even from Eastern Montana or not even from Montana at all. Yeah. It's where they go hunt. And they're like, "Well, stop sharing it." And I'm like, so you don't even live there? Like you just go hunt there, and you don't want these people to own a little tiny shop in Eastern Montana to like survive,
And you can't hide Eastern Montana from hunting. I mean, when we first started hunting over there, if we saw 3 other people in a week, that was a lot of people. And now it's insane. But like, Webo is one of my favorite. Webo and Ekalaka are 2 of my favorite towns in Montana.
Oh yeah, 100%.
One, the Carter County Museum. Like, I love Museum of the Rockies, but Carter County Museum, to me,
if you ever have the chance, you should do the Shindig, which is their dinosaur digging festival.
I talked about it with Milo last night because he didn't know about it. Yeah,
it's awesome. I did a photo shoot for Visit Montana 2 years ago there, and it's so much fun. And like, it's the nerdiest human beings you've ever met in your entire life, and they are so nice. And like, it was so funny because these people like come from all over the country, and it's a hub, and like people are coming from all over for this event. And I remember like when I was like looking at my itinerary for the shoot, it was like, okay, you're going to go dig for dinosaurs, which was awesome. And you're going to go, photograph these people speaking and presenting. That's awesome. Like, whatever, it's a museum. The museum's great. And then there was like the one night, like Saturday night, they were going to have a street dance and live music and drinking. And I was like, right up my alley.
What else do you need in Eastern Montana? That is perfect.
Let's go. And I'm like, because I'm thinking Miles City Buckingham Sale, right? I'm thinking street dancing. I'm thinking good times. I'm thinking fun, good drinks. What I didn't think about is maybe paleontologists aren't the best representation of street dancing because they would not get out there. I tried so hard to get all of them to come out. Like, let's go dancing. Let's go have some fun. Oh, I don't dance. You know, they were fun people and they were hilarious and they were so nice, but they were just like very adamant. One thing was like, I don't dance.
I dig. I don't dance.
But like,
I mean, for me to dig, I'll dig it.
And to like the testament to the people in Eastern Montana. My best friend is from grew up in Fishtail, and then they moved to Glendive with CHS. But so I go to Webo on my trip. The first time I went on my big Eastern Montana loop, and I go to Webo and I stopped at Beaver Creek Brewing. Great brewery. It was like 10 in the morning. They're closed. Yeah. The owner happened to be there, and I know I pulled into town and I took a couple of pictures of the sign because there's some cool clouds or whatever. At 11, the light was getting shitty, but I was like, oh, the sign's cool. We'll get some pictures. And then I go to the brewery and I'm like, well, I'll just hang here in my truck until noon, until the brewery opens. And it's like I said, it's like 10:30, 11. And he's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, told him what I'm doing. I'm going on this trip. He's like, give me 5 minutes. So he comes over, he comes and grabs me. He's like, yeah, why don't you come inside and start drinking with me? I got nothing going on. So I'm drinking. And I was like, well, I'm on my way to Medicine Rocks. Well, I started drinking at like 11 o'clock in the morning with the guy that owns the brewery. And I'm like, well, I ain't going anywhere for a while now. So I just hung out there for like 5 hours drinking. Wow. And then he's like, so you're here on a photography trip? And I said, yeah, I was, but I'm just here to chill now. And he's like, well, would you take some pictures of the brewery for me? And I'm like, yeah. So I took some pictures of him working and of the tanks and stuff. And then they have this, they have a stage and a place where they serve food once in a while in the back that I took pictures of. And then a bartender came in and he's like, oh, this is when we normally open. By this time, it's like 4 PM. I'm like, oh, shit, I can't believe I've been here a lot. I can't drive anywhere. So they let me hang there and drink until I sobered up. And then they told me about an old church like out in the middle of nowhere that was the Norwegians built out there like in the early 1900s. Wow. So I went out to this, I found this church. They told me about this old ghost town called Carlisle, Montana that I got some really good pictures of. There's a storm rolling through. So I've got the old schoolhouse and a couple of old buildings, but the people over there are just,
but you probably wouldn't have gotten that info.
So stoked. They're so excited you're there.
Yeah, they're so excited you're there.
And like they're so excited that you are like that you understand. You understand and recognize the beauty of where they live because they obviously love it and they realize that's why they live there because it's such a beautiful place and they understand that. But they're so used to being shit on by Western Montanans and the rest of the world where it's like, oh, Eastern Montana is so ugly, and and it's like the thing I've always tried to tell people about Eastern Montana is that in order to appreciate, you have to slow down. Like you can't just drive through it, right? And I just did an interview for Q2 News and Billings, and I'm really glad because I talked to that guy for like 2 hours. We had a great conversation, and I'm really glad that he left in this one little piece where I was like, have you driven through? It's like, oh yeah, I've driven through Eastern Montana. I drove on 94. It's like you drove through Terry. Oh yeah, I drove through Terry. And it's like, great. Did you get off the highway? Did you go into Prairie Unique and meet Dale and Kathy? Did you go to the Terry Badlands? Like, no. Because if you didn't do that, you haven't been a Terry. And like I use Dale and Kathy as an example all the time because those two human beings are the nicest human beings you've ever met. And of course, as soon as that Q2 interview aired, because everybody in Terry, all 10 of them, watched Q2 News.
Yeah.
They all saw it, and they all saw me give Dale and Kathy a shout out. And I got immediate text from everybody, and they were just so elated. Not only that, like I'm not just doing that to be nice. Like they have the best gift shop in the state of Montana.
Mm-hmm.
Prairie, and it's all Montana gifts. They're the sweetest humans. And the first time I ever met those two was when my first week on the job working for Southeast Montana. My marketing director was like, "I want you to go do a road trip through Southeast Montana. You need to go meet our board members." And you need to go see the region you represent because I hadn't been to a lot. I'd never been to Webo. I had never been to Glendive proper. I'd never been to Terry. I'd driven through it all, but I'd never actually been there. And so I was like, my boss was like, you need to go do this. And I was like, okay. Problem was it was middle of November. Not an ideal time to be in Eastern Montana.
Except for hunting.
Except for hunting. But it was like not a great time. And I quickly learned so much doing that little road trip about what Eastern Montana is like. So perfect example was I stayed in Broadus, their hotel there
Mm-hmm.
one night. And I walked into the bar. You know, there's like 3 bars in that town. And I walked in one of the bars, and the whole town had to be in that one bar because it was Monday Night Football, and there was like 50 people in that bar, which is amazing for a town like Broadus. I'm like, I could probably walk into a bar in Bozeman right now. There's not 50 people in there. And I walk in, and I swear to God, you could hear a pin drop when I walked in the door because everybody's looking at me like, who the hell is this guy? I mean, I'm a big dude. I'm 6'5". I'm broad shouldered. Like, I'm a big dude. So I fill the doorway when I walk in. And I like walk in this door, and people are just like staring at me. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm not welcome here, right? And I walk up, and it was almost like a movie, right? Where like you can hear a pin drop the whole walk in, and then I sit down. And the moment I sit down, the moment my butt hits a bar stool, all the talking resumes, and the bar is like loud as all hell.
I can totally picture it.
And I'm like, what? Just okay. And I'm sitting there, and here's this guy just down the bar from me, and he's looking at me, and he's, you know, maybe about my age, and which is young for a town like Broadus, you know. And so he's looking at me, and he goes, "Not from around here, are you?" And I was like, "Nope." And he goes, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "Billings." I was not that far from home, you know. And he's just like, big city kid. Just like,
yeah.
Yep. And he literally looks at me and he goes, "Big city kid, huh?" And I said, "Yep." And he looks at the bartender and he goes, "First round's on me." And he just like buys me a beer, you know. And then I ended up bullshitting with that guy for hours, you know, the whole night, and just learning about him and ranching and like, you know, just the various things that he does, and just a nice guy. And like, you know, and then, you know, later that trip, same thing. I go to Terry, and I'd never been to Terry, and I actually had a hotel in Miles City, like half an hour away from Terry, and I stopped in at Prairie Unique, and Dale of Dale and Kathy, who owns Prairie Unique, Dale was one of our board members at the time, and so I was like, I need to go meet Dale because I need to meet the board members. So I walked in, and I was like, "Hey, my name is Andy Austin. I'm I'm social media and PR director for Visit Southeast Montana, and you know, I'm just out meeting the board members and shaking hands and, you know, just saying hello, and then I'll be on my way." And Dale was like, "Come on back." And he just like immediately, I go to the back of their shop. They've got like a 1950s diner table and some old chairs back there. And they've got a pot of Folgers coffee, diner coffee on the thing, and pours me a cup of coffee, and he's like, "You want some Lefsa?" And I was like, "Sure," you know. He just pulls out this whole thing of Lefsa and cuts me a slice, and he's like, you know. And I think I was there for 2 or 3 hours. First time I was ever there, and I was supposed to get back to Miles City, and then he was like, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm just, you know, here. We should go drive up Scenic View. You got to go see Scenic View. You got to go up, look at the Terry Badlands." And I was like, "Okay." So it was like middle of the day. It might maybe even like early morning. And I was like, all right, I'll go drive up there. So I leave there and drive up to the Scenic View. And I'm sitting up, and I get up there, and I'm like, holy shit, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was only going to be up there for 15 minutes. It's the middle of the day. And then I was going to drive back. You know, it's wintertime. It's snowy. It's not great out. It's cold. And I was like, I don't want to leave, you know, like this is such a beautiful view. And so I made a little campfire, I made a little dinner, I hung a hammock, and I just sat there for hours. And during that, I think I was there for 4 or 5 hours. I didn't hear a sound, like other than, well, really anything. Middle of winter, so there weren't any birds chirping. There was nothing. Dead silence. Not a car. You couldn't even hear the highway. You couldn't hear anything for 4 hours. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you can't hear anything for 4 hours, but it's like, what is happening? You know, and I'm shooting the sunset, and then I had to drive all the way to Miles City afterwards, but I was like, worth it, you know?
Totally. I've been on that lookout. Some of my favorite sunset pictures that I've taken in the last 10 years have been here. And some sunset pictures on the Calypso Trail. Yep. Up in the Badlands, the Chimney Rock.
I took a rattlesnake bite to the boot on the Calypso Trail.
Really?
Yeah. Took out the boot, still wear them every day.
Hell yeah.
Resold them last year.
I didn't see any snakes, and then I went down and got pictures. So you actually drive. They redid the bridge. It's on the old Milwaukee Trail, the train, old Milwaukee train. They turned it into a road, and you drive across it when you cross the Yellowstone north of Terry. Dude, it's cool. Wow. And then you can go up Calypso Trail, and then I don't know. I've told you about Evelyn Cameron. Yeah, and she took a bunch of pictures.
The museum is great in Terry too.
The museum is freaking awesome.
I mean, that's the thing about a place like Terry is like they're so passionate about their town, right? Like, you know, like they're not getting tourist traffic to run a museum. Like they are not, like they cannot sustain a museum, but they do because they're passionate about it, you know. And like Evelyn Cameron was such a badass, like you know, and it's just such an amazing place.
I think my kids did a report on Evelyn. I never heard of Evelyn Cameron until one of my kids was in high school, had to do a report. And then, boy, I heard everything about Evelyn Cameron all of a sudden. And I think it was my daughter. She did a big old huge report on it. And anyway, that's how I found that name.
She is such a cool individual. And like, you know, there's a lot of that at Eastern Montana. And so like, you know, that road trip was amazing. And like, actually, another funny story on that road trip was I got to Webo, and I get to Webo, and I've never been to Webo in my life, and I get there, and one of our board members, Donna O'Connor, and her son actually owns Beaver Creek Brewing. Mm-hmm. And Donna at the time, I don't know if Donna's still alive. If she is, she's got to be well preserved by now. She had to be in her 80s at the time, and she was a sweet woman, but she held no punches ever, right? Like she was of that age where like she was going to tell you how she felt about something, and she did not care if you liked it. And so I go, and she was like, I think she volunteered at the library or something. So I meet her at the library, and here I am sitting there, and God bless her, she's got one lazy eye and one looking at, and I'm like trying to figure out what eye to look at, and it's just like, thing. Sweet woman. And she's like, so what do you do? And I was like, I'm the social media and PR manager for Southeast Montana Tourism. And she's like, what does that do? And I was like, well, I just started the job, so I'm going to be figuring this out. But like, it's my first job. And I'm like, I'm going to be running our Facebook page. At the time, we didn't have an Instagram yet. Everybody else did. Instagram was very much a thing. This is in 2014. I'm like, Instagram was around. I was like, I'm going to start an Instagram account. I'm going to run our Facebook account. I'm going to do PRs. I'm going to help with journalists and things like that. And she's like, well, I'm going to tell you something. I'm like, okay, here we go. And she's like, I don't understand why we need this social media stuff. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, you drove here from Baker. And I'm like, yes. And she's like, I bet you noticed the drive from Baker to here, there's no cell phone service. And I'm like, yes. And she goes, so how are people supposed to get on the Facebooks? And I always love people call them the Facebooks. So how are people supposed to get on the Facebooks and see a post about us here in Webo and realize they're supposed to stop in? And I'm like, well, that's not how social media works. It's not geolocation based.
Yeah.
It is. And I'm like trying to explain to her, I'm like, the hope is that like, hey, I'm going to be here. I'm going to post about Beaver Creek Brewery or Webo and your museum or whatever. And people are going to be planning their summer road trips, and they're going to see that post, and they're going to go, I want to go to Webo. Yeah. They're not driving from Baker and being like, I saw on Facebook that I should go to Webo. So that was the whole thing. But this is also the woman who I wasn't there for this. This was before my time, but apparently her first board meeting ever, everybody went around the room and explained, you know, who they were, where they were from, what company they work for, you know, because most people that are on the board like work for a company. And from my understanding, she got to her and she goes, Donna O'Connor, Webo, Montana, and our beaver tastes better. Which is the slogan for Beaver Creek Brewing, which her son owns, but I don't quite know if anybody ever explained it to her what that means. So it's just people like that, you know, and like it is a special kind of like small town, you know, it's
Americana.
It is, and like it's still alive and well. And like these are people that you'd meet at a bar, and they'd be like, "Come over for dinner," you know, and like without a doubt. And they're not trying to be nice. They're literally like, you look like you could use a meal, and I'm going to invite you to my house, and I'm going to make you dinner. You know, and it's just, I think it's heartwarming because, like, especially I think in the world today where it's like so volatile and there's so much, you know, like hatred left versus right and all this stuff. I feel like if either side just goes to Eastern Montana, you can sit at a bar stool. Nobody's going to talk politics with you. They don't. Well, I don't politics. They're going to talk about the weather, and they're going to talk about life, and they're going to talk about their kids, and they're going to talk about, you know, current like life. They don't give a shit about what's happening, you know, and they're not, you know, going to judge you.
Facebook's out there. That's why.
We got a cell phone service for the Facebooks.
Yeah.
But
That's the
small town news is funny because, like, I broke down in a couple years ago, somewhere in 2020. Actually, I was driving around doing work, and I broke down in Malta, Montana, which is why I got a special thing for Malta because of this whole situation. But I broke down in Malta up on the High Line, and I broke down in my old van, and it wasn't anything bad. It was literally belt tensioner, but like getting a belt tensioner in Malta is a whole ordeal. And so I went to the one mechanic in Malta, which I'm grateful they're there. Great people. And they were like, yep, you need a new belt and you need a new belt tensioner. And I was like, okay. They're like, it's going to take 3 days to get here. we got to order from Billings, and we got to wait for somebody who just happens to be driving from Billings to come up here.
Somebody to put it in their saddlebags.
It's like, okay. And they're like, I'm like, can I drive? And they're like, I wouldn't recommend driving anywhere because, like, that thing is on its last legs. So, like, I would just wait. So I ended up living in the city park of Malta for like 3 days in my van. And I lived there for 3 days. And I think I was like well known amongst the community that I was like, there's a dude living in our park. But also I think I met the whole town.
Yeah, sure.
And I went, so like every day I would go to their brewery, which I've talked about it 3 times on this podcast already, but the Blue Ridge Brewing in Malta is a gem, and their beer is great. It's a great vibe. And I remember, like, first time I walked in there, this is summer 2020, right? So like bar stools were banned. So I couldn't sit at the bar. You could still be in the bar. And I remember like walking in and everybody's just standing at the bar instead of
a weird period
so
in
all
time.
The bar stools were in the corner and everybody was just standing at the bar. And I was like,
did you get a picture of that?
So I just walked up and I'm like standing at the bar and I'm talking and I just remember, you know, I met half the town. And I'm talking to the bartender, and I'm talking to the locals, I'm talking to the regulars. It's like a Tuesday night, and they're telling me these stories. And like, there was 3 stories in particular, but I can remember 2 of them. And one of them was about this incident that had happened where they were like, you know, some kids broke in and busted about a bunch of windows at the junkyard nearby, and nobody could figure out who it was. And there's some local guy who nobody knows where he came from. He's not from there originally. Moved in, keeps to himself. Definitely Unabomber type, you know, just like
Unabomber type.
Yeah, like just sits in the corner and drinks a beer every once in a while, but nobody ever asks him like what his deal is. And I guess that they called him to go investigate, and he like went out there and like looked at the tire tracks, and he's like, I know who did this. Like,
I reckon.
And they figured out who busted the windows out because of like he went out there and like figured out the tire tracks, right? It's the whole thing.
That's so Carl. He's had a bolt in his tire for 3 weeks now. Yeah.
So he's like, you see that left front tire is a little wobbly, and I know whose car that is. You know,
yeah,
it's
that's
like
Carl. It's been out of balance now since 2022.
Definitely was like a CIA spook or something before moving to Malta. Like, I don't know what happened, but he knew who it was. So they told me this whole story. And then they were like, well, when you get your van fixed, where are you going to go? And so I got to go out to Glasgow. And they're like, oh, great. Well, when you go to Seiko, you got to stop in. You got to go to the grocery store. And they got the best beef jerky there. And they got the best pepperoni sticks there. It's local. You got to get some. I'm like, will do. And there was a third store, and I don't remember what it was. But those are the 2 main ones. So then the next night, still broken down and living in their park, go back to the brewery, whole new cast of characters. because that was the Tuesday crowd. This is the Wednesday crowd. New bartender, new patrons. I'm like, Wednesday crowd. So I'm talking to them, and they're just enamored by me because obviously somebody new to talk to. Some fresh faces in the bar tonight. And they proceed to tell me the same exact 3 stories for the next hour. And I was just like, this is the local news of Malta. Like, this is the big happenings. And like, I think the car break-in thing was like 2 weeks prior, like that was the biggest news to hit Malta and, in a while. And like completely different crowd talking to the same exact, like, which way you going? Glasgow? You got to go to Seiko. You got to get the pepperoni sticks. You got to get the jerky. And I'm like,
best beef jerky.
I did get it. It is fantastic. Highly recommend it.
You have to get it. If both the different
both
crowds,
nights were like, this is
recommend
claim to fame of the High Line.
Yeah, that's what needs a review online. It's like both crowds, both nights recommended.
Both nights, completely different crowds. I didn't think it was possible to have like 2 different, like it's not the same crowd, right? But like I feel like that's why I like breweries, because it's not just the alcoholics. It's like, it's like a different rotating crowd. It's like I'm the Wednesday guy.
Yeah, they're like the connoisseur alcoholics, though.
I don't know. Our breweries become pretty consistent.
Is it?
Yeah, but I mean, I spend a lot of time at the brewery because I like breweries.
I still haven't been in there. I've driven past it a number of times, and I've been wanting to go in there.
I get the feeling you drive by Columbus a lot, and you just fucking drive by.
Look, my family's in Laurel. My sister's in Molt. I'm in Bozeman. I'm there probably once or twice a month, but I'm usually in a rush. I'm usually like, I waited too long to leave my house.
Yeah. See, you got to slow down, because if you slow down, and then if you hit the brewery, so literally the brewery is right across the tracks from our studio. Literally, I can go outside, I know where your studio is, and we can look right across the tracks directly to the north of us.
Have you?
Have a few brewskis and then come over here and we catch up.
Have you ever been or seen Uncle Sam's Eatery?
I never have, actually. No.
Oh, well, never mind. We're in the Uncle Sam's complex right out on the south side of the
we call it the Uncle Sam's complex here.
A couple years ago, my bachelor party started at the Atlas Bar a couple years ago.
Yeah, there you go.
My bachelor party started and then proceeded to go from there to the pig races.
Dude, the pig races. Dude.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the wilder weekends of my entire life. And I've had a lot of wild weekends.
You've been all over the world, and for you to say that the pig races here were one of the wilder weekends. My sons and their cousins all like they formed a team and did the pig wrestling here.
Yeah. We've done the pig wrestling too, because
epic.
The whole county thinks it's funny that cops pig wrestle.
Oh yeah.
So
I get it.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yep.
So you need to slow down. You need to come stop at the brewery, have a few beers.
I know. It's on my list. I've been. I've
look both ways and stumble across the tracks into our studio, and we'll just catch up.
A couple years ago, I had the Montana brewery passport. I still have one, and I pretty much damn near finished it. But I've actually had my second rendition now, because my first one, I like used it. It was actually summer of 2020, because I literally was like driving around so much in my van. And I was like, I went to so many breweries that summer, and I was just like, man, this passport, like this brewery passport, has like gone from being like a fun thing to like a diary of alcoholism. Because I'm just like, and I remember like at one point I walked into a brewery in like somewhere in Western Montana, like Thompson Falls or something, and I walked in, and this guy goes, man, that passport has seen some love. It's just beat to shit.
Man,
he's like, how old is that passport? I'm like, 6 months.
Does it need its own TikTok?
Probably.
Yeah. Just document it.
On my book Kickstarter, I did put an option for $500. I will hand deliver you a book, and we can do a brewery tour together. I did put it there, and one person actually has bought it so far.
Wow,
That's awesome.
that is great.
I was like, I don't know if anyone's gonna buy this, but it'd be funner than shit if somebody did.
That's just fun that you did it. That you put it out there.
I'll just sit there and tell you stories and
Yeah,
I'm a beer. I think I put it in the disclaimer. I said first round's on me, and I specifically put it as first round's on me so they don't expect that the whole brewery tour is on me, because I could spend more than $500 on that for sure.
Right. It's not going to cover that.
Yeah.
But I really hope it happens in a place that has one brewery, because in my mind when I made it, it was Billings or Bozeman or Helena or Missoula, a place that has multiple breweries.
Yeah.
I said on the thing, I was like, I'll do it anywhere in Montana, and I said on the thing I would do that, and I'm like, I'm hoping it's somebody in Glasgow, and it's like, well, we got one. We're just gonna go shit faced.
Yeah.
And I was at a brewery once in eastern Montana. I'm not gonna say which one because we'll get them in a lot of trouble. But there's a 3 beer limit in Montana if you don't have a liquor license. And they had a brewery license, and they were just like, I hit my 3rd beer. And they're like, you want another one? I was like, I hit my 3rd. And they're like, do you think a health inspector or freaking liquor inspector is coming out here? I don't give a shit. Have another beer.
That's how you know you're at the right place.
Yeah.
Oh man.
They're like, we know you. We know you're not a narc, and so that's why I'm not leaving. I'm leaving their name out of it.
You probably already admitted too much to us. We have something on you. Yeah.
I am a brewery guy, and I will say that doing brewery tours in Montana is. I don't know. We've done it. We just went to Canada a couple of weeks ago to go watch hockey for a week, and I love hockey, and I do like going to Canada. And we did the brewery. We did a bunch of breweries there, my wife and I. But there's just something about breweries here. I've done breweries in Oregon. Every time I go take pictures somewhere, we go to breweries. But there's just something about breweries in Montana that is just the experience is a little different than anywhere else I've ever been, and it is. It's something about the culture of Montana. We're a drinking culture. Montana's a drinking culture. And the brewery, now that the brewery scene is really big and every small town has a brewery, it just adds to this whole culture and the small town feel of Montana. And it is so cool.
Well, I think I love it because if you go to a Stockman bar or a Mint bar, which are in every city in Montana, if you go in one of those and if you go in there at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, you're only going to meet some alcoholic who has been there since 10 a.m.
Yep.
And drinks a pint of Black Velvet every day. And it's not quite the crowd that I want to hang out with. All a lot of good times in those bars. But those little bars definitely are a little more of a, tough crowd. Versus a brewery crowd is we're not necessarily here to get drunk. We may accidentally get drunk, but we're mostly here to hang out. It's a social,
It is.
And that's what I was talking about with the book and wanting to do this book tour is I think it'd be fun to do the book tour in breweries, and be hey, instead of doing a book signing in a bookstore, let's do it in a brewery where it's already a community gathering spot and let's hang out and drink beer. And I haven't approached a single brewery about this yet, but
I think that's a great idea.
I happen to have an inn at our local brewery. So if that is something you want to do,
hell yeah,
let's set it up, and it'll be your first time at Palladium, so
perfect.
We can set it up here in Columbus.
I'll give my stamp. But I think it's fun because I think it'd be to do it in these places that aren't used to getting crowds, right? They're not used to getting not crowds. Sorry, I mean what I mean is they're not used to getting a book tour. They're not used to getting, when a concert goes on tour. When Pearl Jam goes on tour, they're not going to Columbus, right? They're not used to being a destination that is literally on, I actually want to do a poster, right? Where it's if I could schedule this in far enough advance, which I don't know if I could do that, but if I could schedule it far enough in advance, I would have a poster made that had all the towns on it. And it's Webo and Glasgow and Malta and just these towns on there that you're where the hell are you? Also
a great T-shirt,
oh, for sure, and it would say
kick-ass T-shirt. I'd wear one.
But it also I would try to pick all the places that are also another place, So it's Manhattan, Glasgow, Malta, and people are you want a world tour? It's no. This is a Montana tour.
It's Montana tour only. Yeah,
all those names from all over the world.
And I don't know if you've ever had much of it, but we actually have one of the 3 meaderies in Montana.
I have some of the mead in my cabinet right now.
Do you? Some of JT's? Yeah. Super
I haven't been there. My mom got me a thing of it for Christmas. It's really good.
Yeah, JT is one of my really good friends. He's a great guy. He's he's super into doing stuff in the community. We've had him on the podcast, and so yeah, once you come to Columbus, you'll have to, even if he's not open, I can give him a call and we'll go down there.
I'm gonna have to bring my van to have a place to sleep. So it definitely sounds like I'm doing a drinking tour, because obviously when I go to Columbus, I have to go to the Atlas Bar.
Absolutely, you can't not come to Columbus and not stop at the Atlas.
My favorite koozie of all time is the horniest bar in town. Koozie. It's like, it's such a great koozie.
We'll save you a spot down here at the Itchkapee River access.
Yeah. So we could talk for like another 5 hours, because you hit 55 plus countries on all 7 continents. And it's something that I want to visit with you about, because I'm working on something like that. I've got Antarctica and South America left, and I'm done with my 7. Nice. Oh shit, Australia. Right. I forgot. But
Australia.
Yeah, I know. A couple of the guys in the comments did want to see if you would visit about the cigar tour in Nicaragua. If you don't mind hitting on that for a little bit. And like I said, we'll keep you forever. I mean, Milo might want to go home, but
what?
I mean,
what are you talking about, man?
I got a whole bottle.
So I have 8 different bottles. We got all night.
The conversation might get a little sloppier.
Hey,
you're gonna get some really uncensored, unfiltered, raw, like late
still
night
some entertainment value there.
Yeah, and I don't think we're famous enough that YouTube would be like, we're gonna shut you down.
Yeah, we don't have their attention yet.
Yeah. So, the Nicaragua tour. So I've done Nicaragua twice, and it's one of my favorite Latin American countries. It is such an underrated, amazing place to visit. It's really affordable. The people are super kind. Obviously, English is not widely spoken, but you can get around, and people are very accommodating. Tourism's not a big thing there.
Go for it.
Yep. I got to go get a drink.
Yep. He can see you on monitors all over the place.
Man, you guys got a whole setup there in the old storage unit.
That's why I was like, you know what? I look down all the time, but I'm like, I have a monitor right up here on the wall. So that's why I'm looking up here, because I'm a little closer to the.
I'm telling you, guys are like such a professional thing. And I'm here and I look like I'm in a cave.
No. Hey, you ought to see our digs here. We are, we don't even have a restroom, like they cut down our tree across the way. So we don't even have anywhere to go now. So that's what keeps us humble.
I mean, if I drink more whiskey, I'm definitely going to use the old restroom in a minute. But no, so Nicaragua, so I did this like coffee cigar tour down northern Nicaragua through Esteli, which, like, if you know anything about cigars, Esteli is like Mecca of cigars.
But how did this happen? How did it even come about?
This was through how did this come about? I was working with the Nicaraguan Tourism Board on like a fam trip. So like a hosted, like, we're not going to pay you, but we're just going to host a bunch of people on this trip. It was really cool. And like, I got to experience this like really neat part of the world that I'd never been to and never thought about.
Yeah.
And it was such a neat place. And it was so funny because, like, when I was there, this was in 2014 that I was there the first time. And when I was there, like, tourism was just starting to bud, right? Like, San Juan del Sur, which is like the coast, the surfer town, that's always busy no matter what. But like Esteli has always been like a really quiet area, but it's where some of the best cigars in the world are made. And like, I'm a big cigar guy, so like, so many good brands are there. And like Romeo y Julieta is made there. Hoya's made there. Like, I don't know, I could go through a huge list, but anybody Nicaraguan cigars is made in Esteli. And so when you get to Esteli, like, I remember like walking around and people being like, oh, like, tourists were starting to bud. It was really cool, and it was a unique experience. And then after that, I went back in 2019 with my wife, and because I had a job that was in Costa Rica, and I've been to Costa Rica, I think 4 or 5 times in my life now. I like Costa Rica. It's a little too touristy for me these days. It's pretty expensive. It's touristy. It's
kind of
definitely
that's going to shatter my wife because she's always telling me we got to go to Costa Rica.
it's going to be just as expensive as like going to a trip to Bozeman.
Well, the thing is, I don't care about that. It's that the tourism or the touristy thing. Like, I'd rather go to those off the path.
So Nicaragua is it. So like the running statement is like Nicaragua is what Costa Rica was 20, 30 years ago, right? So like it's this raw, undiscovered place, amazing coffee, amazing cigars. But it's anyway, so we did this job in Costa Rica and they paid for my flight down, paid for my wife's flight down, this whole thing. And then I was like, hey, can you book our return flight for a week after the job is over? And they're like, oh, what are you going to do? And I said, we're going to go to Nicaragua because it's just an amazing place. And so they're like, great. So we go back, we do this trip, we go to Costa Rica. It was fantastic. And then we do Nicaragua. And it was so funny because like I have this really bad habit, depending on who you ask, of going to places while there may be some civil unrest.
I do the same thing.
And it's because I do no research, right? Like I just don't look. Because like if you go to the U.S. State Department website and look at a country, it's almost always red. Like any country, it's just like there's always a warning, And so I'm always like, I don't pay attention to those because most of the time it's fine.
Yeah, they said about Nepal, and I'm like, really? Nepal?
Yeah, like
the whole country, there's nothing there.
Like tons of places I've been in Southeast Asia and like around the world, South America. It's been completely fine.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I didn't look, and I didn't realize like Nicaragua has like a history of uprisings like every decade or so. Like they just overthrow the government every decade, and it's just kind of part of Nicaraguan history.
It's like a season.
Yeah, and like people get shot, people die. It's part of life. We did not realize that when we were there, it was done, but they had just recently gone through another one of those uprisings. So the country was a ghost town as far as tourists go. And we went back to Esteli because I was like, we got to go to Esteli. It's my favorite place. I love it so much. We go to Esteli and go back to cigar. I was like, I want to do cigar tours. I want to go smoke cigars. So we get to Esteli. We are the only white people in the whole town, except for an older Dutch couple, which is bad because the Dutch don't give a shit about anything. And so if the Dutch are there and the Dutch are the only ones there, you have done something wrong because the Dutch are notoriously just like, we don't really give a shit. And so it was just an older Dutch couple, and that was it. And it was us.
If you're the only white people there, I mean, and do you just stand out at 6'5" and I played football 100%. In Montana?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And
nobody's thinking about taking you for ransom. Nobody.
No. Like I think about that all the time. Where like I get questions on TikTok or social media where people are like, I'll post the country of Georgia or something. People will be like, do you think this is safe for a solo female traveler? And I'm like, I'm the wrong person to ask. I am the opposite of a solo female traveler. I am a large male traveler. So like, yes, but like, yeah. And I try to like always preface that with people. I'm like, look, I am probably the worst person to ask. I will tell you from my perspective, fantastic place, super safe. I don't know what it's like for a solo female traveler to be there.
I'm not out here mapping out recommended places for solo single travelers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I try to think about it. And like my wife's a big traveler, and I try to think about it in terms of like, would I feel comfortable with her being here? And like, I don't think I've ever been to a place where I don't feel like that was the case, So
in Nicaragua, you were okay with her being there?
Well, she was with me, but still, even by herself, I probably would have like, she's smart. So like, she would have.
My wife is in the comment section saying that Nicaragua is on her list now, and so now I'm trying to figure out whether I need to stress about
that. No, I wouldn't worry about it. It's honestly, everyone was so friendly and so nice, and like the civil unrest wasn't geared towards outsiders; it was geared towards the government. So as long as you're not the government, you're not going to get shot. And as long as you're not protesting the government, you're also not going to get shot. So like usually that's the one-way street. Like it's not dangerous. I think like when it gets on these lists, it's like dangerous. It's like it's not really dangerous towards
like because tourists. You're the only white guy, they're just going to assume you're CIA.
Yeah, probably.
And it's either that or they think you have money. And I get the whole list thing. I was going to host a workshop in Ecuador in February, and I had 4 photographers back out because Ecuador was on the list. And I'm like,
really?
Yeah.
I literally was just in Ecuador, and it was on the list when I went.
Yeah.
And it was 1,000% fine. Like, it was like totally fucking normal. I walked around at night by myself and never felt once like I was like, I was even like in some seedy areas, and I never once felt uncomfortable.
That's what I told him. And I was like, look, the people that were going, the guides that I have for the workshop, this is what they do. They're not going to put you anywhere. We're going to go see birds and speckled bears.
Yeah. You're also going to be like, you're not going to be in the city. Like, you're going to be in the nature. No. Like, that's the biggest thing about any trip in any country is like, if you're in another country, if you're in another place, like, you're not going to be in the city, you know? Yeah. And like, I've never felt weird, and I mean, I probably felt more uncomfortable in U.S. cities than anywhere else on the planet. You know,
my wife and I say that a lot, and the clients that I had, they just couldn't get over the fact that Ecuador was on the list, and at that point, when 4 out of your 6 aren't going to go with you, at that point, it's not worth it anymore. And so I canceled the trip, which kind of sucked for me.
So the government will warn you about Ecuador, but not about Red 40.
Yeah, right.
Hey, that's what we live in, man.
I felt way more uncomfortable in like the south side of Chicago than Ecuador, like 100%.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing, and it's like, I don't know, like that kind of stuff. So yeah, we were there, and it was just like there was nobody there, and we didn't know why until we looked it up later, and we were like, "Where is everybody?" Like last time I was here, it was 5 years prior, but I was like, there were people here, there was tourists here, and like there's nobody here. And we walked into this this store, like a cigar bar, and it was a cigar bar, and I walked in, and it was a woman-owned cigar bar. owned by this Nicaraguan woman who was probably my favorite person of all time. She was a freaking character. And we walk in and she just, oh my God. And we're like, whoa, okay, hold on. What's going on? And she's just like, welcome, welcome, welcome. She's like, what do you want? And we're like, just a cigar and some rum. And she's like, do you want a beer? And we're like, beer is fine, you know? And she's like, okay. And she gives us a beer. It's got her face on the beer label. And she gives us cigars and she's like sitting there. And so we're smoking cigars and she keeps coming back out. And she's, how is it? And we're the only people there, you know? And it's like, there's a tiger painted on the wall. And we're like just sitting there and we're like, it's great. Like, it's great cigar. And I rolled them myself. And I was like, these are great cigars. And she's like, well, like, you know, I rolled them. I'm like, great. And then a little while later, she comes out and she's just like, can I take your photo? And I'm like, sure. So she takes a photo of Chelsea and I, my wife and I, smoking cigars in her spot. And she's like, I'm going to post this to Facebook if that's okay. And we're like, okay. And she's like, okay, great. And then a while later, she comes back on. And she's like, so, like, you guys are here. Does this mean tourists are coming back? And he's just like, oh, no. Like, if I'm here, it's probably a sign that tourists aren't coming back. Like, yeah. I'm here. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, there's a great Instagram reel on viral a while ago that was like, what's your unethical life hack? And he was like, I go places after there's terrorist attacks. There's like, it's a great video. I'll have to try and find it again, but it's like this guy who's like, I go places after there's a terrorist attack. And they're like, why? And he's like, look, security is higher. The likelihood of it happening again is actually lower. Everything is really cheap.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
it's pretty genius.
And they want you
and
to
he's
go.
like, yep, I go everywhere after, like, right after a tourist attack after a terrorist attack, because it's
prices are down.
Yeah. Well, we even did that when we went to Belize. We went to an island off the mainland, and it was during COVID, so we give it in that. But there were people that would open their restaurants they're like, you're not afraid of COVID? We're like, no, we're not afraid of COVID. That's why we're here, because we wanted to hang out when there's nobody here in your country, you know? And so we're on this island in Belize. People would open their restaurants for us.
Wow.
There was
for sure.
A group of us went, you know, a bunch of us, just no kids. They would open restaurants for us. They'd open bars for us. And we're the only ones in there. And they were the most ecstatic, you know, the same thing. Can we take your picture? Does that mean Americans are coming back or tourists are coming back? And I was like, probably not yet, because people are scared, but
look,
we're not. We don't give a shit.
Opposite sign of that. If I'm here, it's probably a sign they're not coming back. Like, I'm here, and like, and Nicaragua was like that. And like we were like having been in Costa Rica right before, where dinner would cost $60, $70 for two of us, and then going to Nicaragua where we had appetizer, 2 entrees, dessert, probably 2, 3, 4 drinks each. Our bill was $12. It's like,
wow.
All right, yeah, this is great.
It's like the Eastern Montana of Central America.
Yeah, I was just thinking that a minute ago.
Dude, there's restaurants in Ekalaka where you can get a burger and fries and a drink for like $4 still. $6 now.
100%.
Inflation.
Yeah.
But
no,
so
it's like,
what's your favorite cigar? Cause somebody in the comments was asking what's down there. What's your favorite cigar?
That is Shelby Burrows, Mr. Dreamy, who said, "What's your favorite cigar?"
That's tough. I'm gonna go genre. I'm gonna go brand. I'm not gonna go specifics because I like a lot of different things. I love a good My Father's. I love these ones I've got right here. This was actually my wedding present. I'm a huge fan of these. This is Fuente Hemingway that I've been smoking a lot of.
Oh, look at those.
Yeah.
But these are really good. Yeah, the Fuentes. Anymore, I smoke a lot more pipe tobacco.
I don't know if Milo's seen it, but there was you did a reel maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So since we're at that point, 2 or 3 years ago reel, we'll break in. I met you at do you remember Jade Iyer Flanagan? She lives in Red Lodge now. So she introduced you and I at a Kentucky Derby party that was at the Swift River.
Yeah.
That's where I first met you, and it was kind of like a geek moment because I've followed you since like 2014, 2015, and I'm like, one day I'm going to meet him, hang out, and drink with him because he's my kind of guy type of thing. So Iyer introduced us for like 5 minutes. I was actually part of the owner of the company that did security out at that at that event, and so that's where I met you for like 5 minutes.
Cool.
And that was it. You and Nathan Citran. And but where was I going with this?
Cigars.
Oh, anyway, there was a reel that you put up, and I think you were hiking the peak out of Bozeman in a suit that was a pink and gray suit, and you're sitting up on top of the peak smoking a pipe. And I was like, that's cool shit. I don't care who you are. Cool shit.
Funny story about that. So I suited summit. I haven't done one in a while. I need to do one this summer because I haven't done one in a while. But I used to do these all the time where I would hike a mountain in a suit and like take photos on the summit. I've done. It's like it's weird when it happens once. It's really weird when it happens more than once. And I have a good buddy of mine, Hugh, who lives here in Bozeman, and he's Billings friend of mine as well, and he's a big cigar guy. And I was doing these for a while, and he was like, "I really want to do one of these suited summits with you." And I was like, "Great, we should do one. Let's do Sacagawea." Like Sacagawea is not a hard hike, but it's not an easy hike.
Mm-hmm.
And Hugh is like not the most athletic, outdoorsy human being, but he loves suits. He loves cigars, and that's why he wanted to do it. And Hugh actually he used to own a suit shop in Billings. And he made a custom suit for me once. And like the whole reason, like to quickly detour, the whole reason I like to do this, and like the reason I like suits, it seems weird being an outdoorsman that likes a good suit, is because when I used to work that desk job, the only desk job I've ever had, I had to wear dress shoes, dress slacks, and a dress shirt every single day for work. And for me, I was always like, well, why don't I put a freaking jacket on and a tie on and just make it look a little nicer? Like, I'm already going to go that far. I might as well just, wear the whole thing. And so I had like a collection of discount clearance rack men's warehouse suits that I used to wear all the time. And during that job, I used to do a lot of, I talk about like my photography career. I used to run away to the mountains every chance I get, or even nature, or even Zimmerman Trail, or whatever in Billings, like even any of the parks. And I used to run out as soon as I got off work, I would run out and shoot sunset and capture all these photos. And oftentimes I was just still wearing my suit and I wouldn't change. And I would just so I'd be like out on Zimmerman Park, or I'd be out in the Beartooth and I'd be like wearing a suit. And it was just because like I didn't have time to change. I was freaking running the mountains, and I'm just like wearing a full suit with a tie and a bow tie and pocket square and the whole kit and caboodle, and people were staring at me like, "There's a dude out here hiking in a suit." And I'm like, I got places to be. I don't give a shit what I'm wearing. And so when I would do my suited summits, it was kind of like a
Suited summits.
Like it was kind of like paying tribute to that, right? Where I was like paying tribute to my roots, like the times when I didn't have the option to change, and I was like, I just got to run out to the mountains and wear a suit. And so I would like go do these. I would like mountain climb in a suit. And so my buddy Hugh was like, I want to do this. I want to do the suit summit. And I was like, great. So we show up at the trailhead, and Hugh's wearing like normal clothes, and I'm already in my suit. And he's like, and I said, "Where's your suit?" And he goes, "It's in my backpack." I'm like, no. The rules of the suited summit, which I have created, are that if you're going to get the glory of being in a suit on the top of the mountain, you got to wear the suit for the whole hike up. And
not just that. I mean, are we talking dress shoes?
I usually wear like a pair of leather Danner hiking boots.
Okay.
So like classy-ish, but not. I'm not hiking in wingtips.
Oboes has some pretty classy hiking boots. All right, so I mean, you can.
Danners I have are pretty nice. So, So anyway, so I would do these hikes, and then so I told him, I was like, hey man, if you're gonna get the glory of being on the summit with the suit on and get the photos and all this cool stuff, you got to wear the suit for the whole hike. And he was like, it's middle of summer, it's hotter than shit. I don't want to hike in a suit. And I was like, you got to do it. So puts a suit on. And we have another buddy with us that's not wearing a suit, and he's not in any intention of wearing a suit. And he's just like, I'm just going to hike. So we start hiking. And of course, my buddy, who is not in the greatest shape, it's just like way behind me. And I'm just cruising right ahead, just trucking along. And my buddy, who is like he's the son of a Catholic priest, and pretty devout man. So every person we came across on the trail was like, why are you in a suit? Because I'd be by myself because he was way behind me. And I was like, oh, I'm getting married on the summit. And so as they go by, they would walk by, and then a little while later, they'd come across Hugh in a suit. And they would just be like, hey, congratulations. And then just keep hiking. So this happened half dozen times. And we finally get to the summit, and Hugh is huffing and puffing. The whole time, I can hear him from way back behind me. Fuck you! I hate you! And just the whole time he's hiking up. So we get to the summit, huffing and puffing. And he is like, hold on. Why was everybody telling me congratulations on the way up? And I was like, oh, I was telling everybody we were getting married. Oh man, look on his face was priceless.
We are getting married.
We're getting married up here. So glad you wore your good suit.
Man.
So that was
the funny enough story about that is that's actually where I got married in a second with my wife.
Wow.
But then we smoked cigars.
Did you propose to her in Antarctica?
I did, yes. Well, you went way back. You went way back.
That story.
How did you even find that? Did you look on social media? Hey, you have your ways.
Gosh, hey,
I'm dialed in. You went deep.
I'm dialed in. And tell me what Montana stone? What Montana stone did you seal the deal with, my man?
Had a Montana sapphire, of course.
Of course. Okay, great.
Yeah. No. So funny story.
Like the original one-upper. Yeah, I proposed to my wife in Antarctica. Where did you propose to yours?
It gets worse. If you want to one-up, it gets a lot worse than that.
Oh my gosh.
So
I know you got a bunch of one-ups. I'm just saying that's a good one.
I try not to be a one-upper guy. I don't like those people. I try not to be one.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. My life was very cool, and I live a really neat life, and so it's hard. There are a lot of cool stories. I try not to be like, oh, you have a story about that. I try not to,
Of course, because
I know some of those people that are like,
oh, hey, but you can't help it if you're living a full life, man. You can't.
For sure. That happened to my dad, my brother-in-law's stepdad. Was over at the house and we were smoking cigars, and my dad had a heart attack not that long ago, and my brother-in-law's stepdad was like, you had a heart attack? And he hadn't really told anybody and stuff, and He's like, yeah. My dad doesn't like talk about it. And and my brother-in-law's stepdad is like, well, my heart attack, and like what proceeded to like try to one up a heart attack story. And it was just like,
Oh my gosh.
what?
Yeah.
What kind of who one ups a heart attack story? But all right. So the whole like very, very long story. We'll try to condense as much as possible. My wife and I met in Morocco many years ago, and we were on kind of like a mutual friends adventure trip in Morocco, and met there. She wanted nothing to do with me at all. She was not interested at all. I was interested in her, and she at the time was living in New York City, and so like I was living in a van, and she was living like in Upper East Side of New York City. So I'm like a van dwelling dirtbag, being like, "Hey, come out and hang out."
From Montana.
Yeah, she's like, "You guys have electricity out there?" So I spent the next 10 months pushing, like trying to get her to, want to hang out with me. Yeah. I sent her letters and postcards and like stuff from around the world in my travels. And she was a big traveler already. So I was like, we really want to, I really want to do this. And then from there, she finally agreed to come out to Montana. She's like, I'll come out to Montana. I'll come hang out. I'm like, yeah. And we're like starting to talk a little bit. And then she's like, text me before she even comes out here. And she's like, I've got this crazy idea. And I was like, what's that? She's like, I want to do a date on every continent. And I was like, okay. And in my brain, I'm like, with me or just like with 7 different dudes? Like,
I think that's where all of our brains would go. If she said it just so like that,
you're just like telling me this is like a friend. You're like, oh yeah, like I want to do 7. I want to like do 7 dudes on 7 continents.
Nah, I need like, my name is in there. You mean with me?
Yeah. Cool. So I think my actual response, because I was like, I didn't know how to play this off. Like, oh, do I play it with a joke? Do I play it off like, hey? So my actual response was like, I volunteer as tribute was like my actual response for the hand raising emoji. Classic. And then she was like, perfect. I was hoping you'd say that. And I was like, oh, so.
All right. That you know your reason.
Sorry, he pushed the door.
That's okay. You want to say hi, Pete? Hold on, my dog wants to say hello.
Perfect.
Pete.
Oh, look at the dog. Look at the dog.
Yeah.
He just had hip surgery 2 weeks ago.
He what? 2 weeks ago?
He had hip surgery.
Oh wow.
But
wow.
All right, buddy. Go to bed.
How's he doing? You getting old or something?
No, he's only 2. But just hip dysplasia. Fee, go to mom. Go over there. Fee. I know you want to hang out with me. Go over there. No, he's getting along too well. He just wants to run around and jump and play.
I get that. Hard to keep him down.
But yeah, he's only 2, but he's got hip dysplasia. So trying to like take care of it before it gets, bad.
Yeah. Out of control.
But he's doing really good. So yeah, he's 2 weeks out. But yeah, so she was like, yeah, I want to do this 7 continents, 7 dates thing. And I was like, yeah, like we already got one. We did Africa. And we had actually inadvertently had a date because nobody else from the trip had showed up yet. So we had like dinner on a rooftop in Marrakesh.
Nice.
And so like, we inadvertently had our first date like in Africa. So we're like, well, 6 more to go. So it kind of like started as like a joke, and then like kind of half joke, half serious. And it was like, I think it was her trying to like push me away and like give some space, being like, hey, yeah. I don't want to get married or anything until I've done 7 continents. And I'm like,
let's make it happen. Yeah.
So next thing you know, it was like we were, I think, like 2 or 3 years into dating. We'd already done like 5, and we were like, wait, we've progressed quickly through the continents. And then it was actually 2020. The good buddy of mine, Nathan Satrin, was like, I got married, and was like, we want to do our honeymoon in South America. And I was like, oh, great. And he's like, we want to invite you and Chelsea to come along with. And I was like, great. And he's like, we also kind of are thinking about doing Antarctica. And I was like, not great. And I was like, why? And he's like, I said, well, if I go to Antarctica, I got to propose because
that'll be 7.
those are our last 2 continents.
Yeah.
And I said, once we've done 7, we're getting married. And this was like, I think we were 2 years solid into our relationship. So I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to propose. Like,
Antarctica was going to be a factor of whether or not I was getting married or not. I would never get married. Like, it just doesn't come up on like my possibility things of like, this is what could happen this year is we could go to Antarctica. That just doesn't ever show up.
Dude, Antarctica's been a bucket list of mine for like 5 years now. I want to go so bad.
I will teach you the secret. There is a way to go affordably. Not super affordably, but there is a way to go on a budget.
Yeah.
What's that?
And warm.
Honestly, I bought a jacket. I bought like the biggest Patagonia puffy jacket they make for Antarctica, and then I ended up not bringing it because it would have been too warm. It was like 30 degrees the whole time we were there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So now you're all of a sudden you're like you have another opportunity. You have an opportunity to go there.
Shit. So that was like early 2020. They're like, we're going to do South America and Antarctica, and I was like, shit. That's going to be a little bit of an accelerated program on my proposal. And then like I wasn't ready and so all this stuff. So then I ended up I had to be ready. So like we had like booked a trip, like doing this whole thing. And then like COVID happened and we're like, okay, well, we can't go now because South America was like mostly closed. We couldn't go. Antarctica's trips weren't running. So we were like, okay, we'll push to 2021. A little better, whatever. So I ended up getting the ring. I actually think I got the ring in 2020. So I was like, I need to get the ring right now. And I was like, I got the ring. And then I was like, I have to fly to Connecticut to like go ask her dad for permission. And so I like went and I like did it as a like I pseudo surprised my wife because she was flying out there for work. And so I faked that I was going out there to surprise her. So I flew out a day before she was flying out. Her sister helped me coordinate the whole thing. So I flew out a day before she was flying out. I told her I was going to be in the mountains and I didn't know cell phone service. I even brought my Garmin InReach so I could sat text her from Connecticut, but pretend I was in the mountains. I was like, hey, I'm in the mountains. Super pretty. Love you. Bye. And I was in Connecticut actually with her at her parents' house and then like went and asked her dad for permission. And that was in 2020. And I actually get to propose till 2022. So I had the ring for 2 years. Because I couldn't actually propose based on the standards of our relationship until we went to Antarctica, which probably was for the best because I don't think I was ready in 2020, but I was definitely ready by 2022.
Huh. Wow.
And it was funny because like most of our friends knew, and also Chelsea knew like what we were waiting for because everybody would always ask like, when are you guys getting? Because like at that point it was like it like drug on. You know, so like, when are you guys getting married?
Did she know that when you guys got to Antarctica that was going to happen?
Pretty much, yeah. Like she knew it was coming, but it was funny because like everybody forever was always asking like, when are you guys getting married? And we're like, we have to go to Antarctica first. That's the first thing.
I see. Yeah.
And so it was like this running like joke. And so like we never talked about it because we knew, but it was like we never talked about it because we didn't want to make it obvious. So the whole, like, it's you have to take 2 days across the Drake Passage, which is like one of the roughest seas in the world, to get to Antarctica. So that whole 2 days of just horrible, like, seasickness and, like, you know, it's basically just 15-foot waves consistently for 2 days.
Fly down there. I'm picturing you guys flew down there.
Oh, no, you got a boat. You got a damn boat.
Antarctica.
Yeah,
well,
that's part of the excitement for me.
No, I'm all down with that too, but I have seen people flying down. I've watched a lot of.
You can fly down there, but then even when you fly down, you can't stay there. You still have to get on a boat afterwards. Yeah. There's no hotel, so like you have to like immediately if you fly there, which is an option out of my price range option, but there is an option for that. and then you immediately get on a boat, and then you're just.
I've
there.
never even looked at the flight option because it's out of my price range.
I don't know. I've been watching a lot of Antarctica videos lately by some guy who goes there quite a bit, and he flies out of New Zealand. They go down there, and then he's showing like all the historic.
He's a bazillionaire. That's
camps. I don't know, but he's showing all the historic camps and things. Anyway, I'm excited that you said sailing across the Drake Passage, because literally just a few days ago, I was talking to my brother, and I said, "Dude, we should just set a 5-year goal that we sail the Drake Passage, and let's just do it, man. Let's go do the Cape Horn." And anyway, go ahead. And so we were just like, let's just set a 5-year goal.
So like we did like Argentina first. We did some fun stuff there, and then we set sail, and that whole 2 days was like kind of this awkward energy, because it was kind of like, when we get there, we're getting engaged, like, and so, but like we didn't want to say it, right? And so it was just like, I have the ring, and then we finally get there.
She knows you have the ring. So are you hiding the whole time?
Yeah, okay. She definitely knew. Like, she wasn't looking for it, but she definitely knew I had the ring.
I'm like a chick, dude. I got to know all the details.
Oh man, and I'm like, so then we get there, and like the first excursion is like snowshoeing on Antarctica to go look at this penguin colony. And my wife is a veterinarian, and so she loves animals, and like that's her jam. And so she's just like, so enamored by the penguins. And I'm like, the moment we get to the penguins, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out where I'm going to propose. So my wife's not like a public person, so I know she doesn't want me to propose like in front of the penguins and all the people from our boat, mostly. Probably the penguins more than anything, but all the people from the boat, right? So I'm like, if there's 100 people there, like watching us, because our boat, we had a smaller boat. Like some of the boats are 500-600 people, and like we had a smaller boat, it's 100 passenger boat. So there's 100 people like on the shore, and like we'd snowship this huge mountain to get up there and like, get to this penguin colony. And I'm like trying to convince Chelsea, I'm like, hey, so we should go back, where we came up the switchbacks and we crest this mountain. There's a great view there. And I think we should get a photo of the two of us there while there's nobody around, because like, there's going to be all these people that all look at the penguins now, but like we should go do it while there's nobody there. And then we can come back and look at the penguins. And her response to that was no.
She's nervously avoiding being alone with you.
No, it wasn't that. She was literally just like, I've traveled across the world to see these penguins, and I am going to stay here and look at these fucking penguins. And I'm just like, no, we should go, and we can come back. Yeah, we should just do it while there's nobody there. We just real quick go take a photo and we'll come back. Because like around this little point, so nobody could see us, and I'm like, it's great, it's a perfect spot for it. She's like, no. So I'm just like, fuck. I'm sitting here just like, freaking penguins are standing between my proposal, and I'm like about to punt one of them off the damn cliff. And I'm like, let's go. So finally, I convince her. I'm like, well, flustered. We convince her. I'm like, well, we go back. She's like, fine. We're gonna come back and look at the penguins afterwards. And I'm like, okay, all right, fine. We're gonna go. We're gonna look at the penguins. We're come, like do this whole thing. So we go back to this viewpoint. But of course, by the time we actually get there, people are already starting to leave the penguins. They're starting to go down. I'm trying to get this private moment, and I'm like setting up the tripod. I'm like trying to be slow, so people are like going, and I'm like, go ahead. I'm just like adjusting the legs, and I'm like, I've got nothing to do. Our camera's set up. I'm like,
my first time with a tripod.
Yeah, I'm like, can you just like boogie? So like a few people were just like, no, we'll wait. And like one of these people is a guy who's now a really good friend of ours, who was like one of our best friends from the ship. He was an awesome guy, lives down in Boulder, Colorado, super good dude. And he's just like, no, I'll just wait for you guys. Like we're friends. Like, we spent 2 days across the Drake Pass together. We became pretty good friends at the bar, like I'll wait for you guys. And I'm like, fuck it. All right. So go in front of the camera. There's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 people watching, including this now friend of ours. And I'm just like, and I had like a whole speech memorized. I forgot all of it. And like, I think like if you were to get the audio on the actual proposal, it's like me going, well, I think this is as private as it's going to get fuck it. And like, I was like, get down. I'm like, will you marry me? And that was it. That's all I had for words. It's like all I could say. And I forgot everything else.
Hey, man,
And,
it doesn't matter. You're in Antarctica, so that makes up for everything.
yeah. So then she's like, yeah. And then and then our now friend was like, whoa, all right, cool. I just,
No wonder you were trying to ditch me.
yeah, like, yeah, I could have said a little better, I couldn't even get me out of here. But yeah, it was funny. It was like, all right, yep, here we go. And then we consider him like the fairy godmother of our relationship because he always just randomly pops up when big moments are happening. So like almost a year and 8 months ago, or whatever, we eloped on top of Sacagawea, where I already previously married my buddy Hugh.
Yeah,
we eloped up on there because we didn't want a big wedding because we both have like split families with divorced parents, and like we didn't want to play the game of like we invite this person, not this person, and like, and next thing you know, it's 500 people, and we're like, we're not doing that. We're gonna elope, and then we'll throw a rager of a party. And so we eloped.
My kind of
the best. It was the best move I ever made. We eloped, and we're like, let's do this, and then figure it out. But we went up, did the elopement, and then literally the next morning after we eloped, we hadn't told anybody yet. Like we just did it, right? We hadn't told anybody. And I got a text from that dude who happened to be there. And he goes, hey, man, I'm passing through Bozeman. You guys want to have a coffee?
It's like a summoning spell for this guy.
It was like, yeah, we just got married. And he's like, what? And I'm like, we haven't told anybody yet, but we just got married. We're just like,
oh my gosh.
We went and had coffee with him.
That's crazy.
Dude just like randomly always messages us like right in the biggest moments.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, bud.
I was thinking too. That was a very Eastern Montana proposal.
Well, fuck it. Here we go.
Here we go. That's Eastern Montana, down home.
Yeah, we're like, well, I ain't got words for this, so
we're gonna do it.
Shit show.
I wonder how many people have actually proposed to their fiance in Antarctica.
Oh,
in Antarctica.
I bet it's a decent amount because I feel like it's a good enough destination.
Like
I feel like it was funny because like we didn't tell anybody like on the boat or anything. Like we came back down, and a few people that were standing around when we did it, because a couple of them that we didn't really know from the boat, like when it first started happening, they just kind of skedaddled off. They're like, whoa, shit, we better go. And immediately they went back to the boat and told the boat captains and like the guides and all that. They're like, oh my god, there's a proposal up there. So by the time we even walked down the hill and got back to the Zodiacs to get back on the boat, they're like, so I heard something big happened up there. And we're like, we didn't tell anybody. We're just like,
wow.
Shit.
Yeah. News flies fast in Antarctica. Yeah.
When there's like 10 people in a 20-mile radius,
Right.
Yeah. 2 years ago, I was up in the breaks taking pictures of elk. And I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but I've shot with him a couple of times, and he was there shooting with me, and then all of a sudden he leaves. And I'm like, where are you going? And he's like, I'll be back in a little bit. He crawls up on the hill, and I look behind me. And so if you've been in this area in the breaks at Slippery Ann, there's a nice ridge that runs just above the road, and all the elk are down below usually. And he staged himself, and one of his buddies proposed to his wife as the elk were bugling right as the sun was dropping down up in the breaks. Dude, it was pretty. I'm like, damn, I should have thought of that one. It was a good one. It was a good spot. I'm like, I'm not gonna get remarried ever, but if I was ever going to propose again, it'd be there. Like the elk bugling. We were there for 5 days. It was the only day that we had a sunset. Incredible. And it just turned out, dude, it was cool.
Wow.
It was damn it, why can't I remember his name right? I've shot with him like 3 years in a row, but anyway, it was a cool spot, but I think Antarctica would top it all.
Yeah. It's gotta be
it's one of the coolest, non-pun intended places I've ever been. Like it is incredible. Not just for like the wildlife, but like the mountains are some of the best mountains I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's right straight out of the ocean.
Yeah. I watched a Jimmy Chin video probably 20 years ago when he was like probably filming with like a Sony Handycam 8 megapixel camera, and him and I want to say it was Conrad Anchor and a couple of other guys, and they were up in Antarctica.
Over my house for dinner the other night.
Really? I've wanted to visit with him so bad.
It was
dude.
the most random thing of all time. Anyway, go ahead. I'll tell you the story, but it's funny.
Yeah. Well, 2 stories. So I watched this video with him, Conrad, and a couple of other guys. Jimmy Chin. Do you know who Jimmy Chin is?
I don't.
Okay, I'll tell you later. But they did this video of them hiking one of the peaks in Antarctica, and then Jimmy skied and snowboarded down, and I was like, I'm going. I'm going. I already had made a plan that I was going to go to Everest on my 40th birthday. I would have done Nepal, or I would have done Antarctica, but because I made Everest my goal when I turned 40, that's why I did that. But I went to a bar in Namche Bazaar when I went on that trip, and there's an Irish pub in there, and there's people were just signing their names on the wall in this Irish pub in Namche Bazaar. And so I searched and searched and searched, and I found a Montana license plate.
Amazing.
On the side of on the wall, on one of the walls, and Conrad had signed it, and he had been there so many times. I mean, it's like his second time, but he had signed his name there. And so I wrote a whole note and signed my name next to this Montana license plate in Nepal, and he signed it on the wall there below it. And I was like, I feel really cool right now, because I was like guy crushing on it. But you had him for dinner at your house. Can I come to dinner?
Yeah, I was like one of the first dinner guests. The first dinner guests I had at my house. We just moved in here in December. And funny enough, I have a really good friend, James Edward Mills, who, if you guys like history, he is fascinating. And he is big time, like he's a Nat Geo explorer, like writer. And his specialty, his like absolute specialty, is in like Black history of the Americas. He's Black himself, and he has such an interesting like historical take. Like his brain works. Like, I love history, but man, that man can recall every date, every like thing that's ever happened in the world, right? And like, I remember I had him over last winter for beers. He lives in Wisconsin. And I had him over for beers, and my buddy Jared, who is also kind of the same caliber, they both like literally were just like, you love the Spanish-American War? I love the Spanish-American War. And then just like would go off on like the most.
Did we just become best friends?
From the Spanish-American War. And like just like things that like I like know my history, and like but I was still just like, what the fuck just happened? You know? And like these two just would go like, we're just like going stat for stat and like wars and history and like, just fascinating stuff. And like, I could just sit here and like, obviously I'm a talker, and these guys, I just stayed silent, just listening to these guys talk. I was like, holy shit, you know? And anyway, so my buddy James hits me up, and he's like, hey, because he like leads these Nat Geo guided trips in Yellowstone, where he's not the guy, he's like the host, and like he's just gonna offer a historical perspective and like historic, you know, like just talk about whatever. He's an interesting guy. And so he texts me, and he's like, hey man, coming back to Bozeman to go lead these tours, any chance you're available, you want to go have dinner or drinks or something? And I was like, yeah. What are the odds you'd be wanting to come over to my house? Like, I'll cook you up some good venison or elk or whatever, and we can hang out here and drink good beer and just, you know, hang out here. Pretty low key. And I was also like, as I have been for the last 2 months, super budgeted down on like saving money for the book, because I need every dollar I can to spend on this book. And he was like, oh, that sounds awesome. And he's like, do you mind if I bring a date? And I'm thinking like, well, I don't think your wife's coming, right? And he's like, my buddy Conrad Anchor, you know, obviously lives in Bozeman, and I was hoping he could join us, because I only have one night in Bozeman, and I know he was wanting to hang out, and I was, you know, wanting to hang out with you as well. So like, can he come with me? And I'm like, yes, Conrad Anchor can come to my house. Like, of course he can. Like,
it's like, can I talk to him too?
Yeah, like. And it was so funny, because I told my wife, who like gives zero shits about celebrity anything, right? Like, she is not like a gossip queen, doesn't care about anything. I tell her Conrad Anchor is going to come to our house, and she's just like, what? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, it's not ready. I gotta clean. I gotta do stuff. I gotta go do, I gotta figure some shit out. Cause we are not ready to host Connor and Anchor at our house. Just well, we are. So here we go. And
well, you've just become my hero.
Fell out of the loop. I know who Conrad is.
Oh my! What?
I fell out of the loop.
Do you know who? We're gonna have to have a conversation after this is over, or we're gonna talk until midnight.
All right, I'm down.
So,
probably. But yeah, it was funny because I was talking to my dad about the same thing, and I was like, "Who were we talking?" We were talking about something, and I was like, honestly, he had referenced some celebrity, and I was like, honestly, in the mountaineering outdoors community, Connor and Anchor is one of the biggest celebrities.
he's like the Reinhold Messmer of our generation.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
one of the top mountaineers to ever exist. Yeah, so it was just funny to have him in my house and just be like, and just everyone, my wife describes it perfectly. She's like, every once in a while you look over and it's like, you've been on Everest how many times? You've summited
I know. Yeah, dude, he's been there. It's seriously, Nepal. He's got 2 foundations for Nepal, I think.
Wow.
And he's there all the time. We
were. I was joking because I have a man tent in my backyard. Came over the house and it's great. It's like a canvas wall tent. It's all framed out, and I've turned it into my cigar smoking, whiskey drinking lounge. If the Wi-Fi was better, I would have had this call out there because that would have been great. But there's no Wi-Fi, so but it's the most random collection of shit. But in there, I have it was sent to me by one of my clients, but it's a decanter that actually has Everest in the middle of the decanter.
Oh, really? Oh,
wow.
And my dad was like, did you have that out when Connor was here? And I was like, I fucked up because I had this decanter and I really should have had him sign it or something,
Yeah.
And I was like, man, and we did. I was like, same with my wife. I don't really give a shit about celebrities. I've never wanted to take I've seen plenty of celebrities in my life. I've never wanted to take a selfie with them. I've never been oh, can I get your autograph or take a selfie or whatever? But I was like, if Connor and Anchor's in my house, I have to take a photo of this. You know? And so I was like, at the end of the dinner, I was like, you guys technically are our first actual house guests at our new house. So we got to take a selfie to commemorate this occasion. It's more than anything, I got to have a selfie with Connor and Anchor at my house.
It's not because you're here. It's just because it's my first house guest. I mean, it could have been Carl down the street.
Yeah. And I'm like that. And my wife gets all so when I went on my way back from Everest, and I didn't climb it. I don't have that kind of money. I went to base camp, but on my way back, Bear Grylls happened to be in Namche Bazaar. Wow. And that was the first time I talked to my wife in 2 weeks. It was when I was back at Namche. And so I'm all emotional that I made this trek that I've wanted to do since I was 16 years old. I told my parents I was going when I was 40. My wife, when I turned 40, I didn't get a birthday present, so I was pissed off. I like presents. She gave me a card and she's just wrote on it, I love you, Nepal. And she's like, pick your dates. I'm like, holy shit, I'm actually going. So on the way back, I call her from Namche. And I'm telling her about my last week and a half hiking and on this trek. And it's everything I've wanted it to be, except there were too many people. And it was even the off season because I didn't want to go during peak. It was off season. There was too many people. It pissed me off. But I get back to Namche and I'm in one of the tea houses and there's just all this weird stuff going on. There's a festival going on, which I got to be a part of, which was cool. And then the festival just kind of stopped and everybody's like, Bear's here. I'm like, what? So I'm running all over Namche trying to find Bear, and I never did, but it was I was at least in the same place.
There you go.
But I could care less about celebrities, but some of these people in the outdoors, Jimmy Chin, Conrad, Bear, now Andy Austin, this has been a dream come true for me. So
well, you harassed me enough times, which was warranted because you do have to it's not that I don't want to do things, it's just that I just forget. And And it's not just so much you're doing what a lot of people want to do and they never do because people don't want to take that chance. And you took that chance, right? Honestly,
it's the fact that, go ahead.
No, I was just it's been a really good reminder of that this last week, right? So the reason I'm in the position I am is because I pushed my chips in, right? And like I said, when I quit my job, I'd saved up a nest egg of like $22,000. And I was like, this is my nest egg. In case of emergency, I have a fallback, right? I'm like, I'm going to be able to fall back. I'm going to be able to pay my bills. I'm going to be able to whatever, right? So when I quit my job, I moved into my car full time to live in my 2011 Subaru Outback, which I'm 6'5" dude, bit snug. And I was living in there at the time. And I'd always dreamed of owning a camper van.
Mhm.
And this camper van came on the market, and it was like this is like pre-van life days, right? This is 2020.
It was. I remember watching the
like
when you were
nobody was living in a van except for like Chris Farley, right? Like this was like not it wasn't cool to live in a van. It was like, dude, you're on something, right? Like you're you know, whatever. And so this van pops up on Craigslist, and it's a 2006 Dodge Sprinter van, and it's sick. And I was like, I gotta go look at it. And so I went and looked at it, and I immediately fell in love with it. And I was like, this is the van. And the guy had it listed for like $23,000. And I think I'd already spent $1,000 on my nest egg, so I had like 21 left. And I was like, would you take 21 in cash right now? And he was like, yeah, I would. And I was like, done.
You're like,
and so I went to the bank, and I pulled every dollar I had out of that bank account. And I was like, I'm emptying my savings and my checking account. I need $21,000 cashier's check. And they were like, I remember them asking me specifically, being like, sir, you realize that is all of your money? And I was like, I do. I know that's it, right? Like I know that's all my money. And buying that van and then being like, all right, now what? You know, and just like, I feel like that nest egg was a safety net where I was like, I was cautious because I had a fallback plan. And then I was like, fuck it, let's buy the van. And I bought that van, and then all of a sudden I had no more fallback plan. I needed to make money. I needed to work. I needed to get out there. I needed to do this. And all of a sudden it was like it was an eye-opening experience to be like, I don't need comfort. I need something to push my ass to go to the next level. Right. So that was the first time. And then that happens is happening right now while I empty all of my bank accounts, my liquid accounts, to buy this book, right? Where it's like, I have to buy this book before the Kickstarter pays me out. And it's going to cost $50,000 on top of $5 to $10,000 in miscellaneous expenses, illustrating, editors, all the stuff. So I have to spend another $50,000 that I have to liquidate. And I was like, this is all, and I knew this all before I launched Kickstarter. And I was like, I'm emptying the accounts again. Oof. So here we go, and it's once again, it's like that idea pushes me to be like, all right, I need to do this. Like I need to every once in a while push the chips in and say, there's no going back, and that's where the book is now. And it's like, so launch day comes, and I'm like, just so happened my parents are visiting my house for the first time. They're seeing the new house we got. And I'm like, here we go. And it was like supposed to be an 8 a.m. launch. And I had, and I was like making them breakfast and making, venison gravy and all that stuff. And they're like, when's the launch? And I'm like, 8. And it's like 7:20 in the morning. And I was like, fuck it. Was there a reason to wait till 8? And I was like, literally like while I'm making breakfast, like swing the laptop around. I was like, and go. And I just like pressed go on the Kickstarter. And they were like, why'd you do that? And I was like, I mean, there's no reason to wait for 8. Like I didn't tell everybody. Like I just programmed it to be 8. Like there was no reason for it to be 8.
You only did like 4 days or 5 days of like, you would post a picture and then the illustration and then be like, something's coming on Montana Day, which is 406. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like you built it up for like a 6-month campaign.
I've known for a long time that it was coming, but I was like, I'm not going to do it. And like, it was funny because I was reading on Reddit earlier today, and like there's a bunch of like self-publishing Reddits and like Kickstarter Reddits and all that stuff. And like I was reading a Reddit earlier today that somebody was like, yeah, I had a successful campaign and I launched my like pre-launch page 6 months before the actual launch of my project. And I'm like, I didn't even do a pre-launch page. I launched the project without ever telling anybody what it was. And I was like, and surprise, welcome to Montana Day. We just launched a book. And I was just like, holy shit, here we go. And, you know, obviously the results were just like amazing, but.
Well, cool.
Hey, this is my outlook on things. If you're going to take the island, you got to burn the boats.
That's why I just posted that the other day. Because once I funded, probably my best TikTok of all time is me dancing my gold sequin tuxedo. That's a whole other story why I even own that. But I
assumed it was something that you would. I assume that sequin tuxedo is something that you and Nathan did. I'm just guessing.
No, it wasn't. I crashed a conference that is the entire reason I exist as a photographer today. Wearing that gold sequin tuxedo. But I posted that and I was like, burn the ships. Like what? Because my funding goal for Kickstarter was $25,000, which would pay for like half the book printing cost. And I was like, you know, might seem like a lot of people are like, man, you're just rolling the dough. You got $25,000. It's like, that doesn't even, I'm 25 in the hole afterwards. Yeah. So that's like me gambling on like, if I can't make $25,000 off the Kickstarter, then we're going to be, you know, in a bit of a pickle because I got to pay for this book. And like,
the man cave tent is going to become the domicile for everything. A tent.
It's going to need Starlink.
I'm going to start selling feet pics in there. But I was like, if I can't sell $25,000, because my dad was like, $25,000 seems like a really lofty goal, like really high goal. And I'm like, well, if I can make $25,000, that's, you know, half the book printing costs plus all the other costs associated. But like, that's just half the book printing alone costs. If I can't make $25,000 with the pre-orders, I might be in trouble. And so it's like, I got to do it. And I'm like, if I have to do it, I have to do it. But yeah, I was like, all right, send it. And then, so now that was my whole post the other day. I was like, we hit the goal, hit the $25,000 goal in 60 hours. Then I was like, we're not stopping. I mean, Kickstarter, you keep going until the Kickstarter's, the dates are done. So I was like, we're not done. Burn the ships. We're not going back. Now the book is like,
you got to go.
Like, if I had gotten $5,000 in funding, I would have been like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to produce a book right now. But like once that 25 hit, I was like, okay, the book is happening, which means now that I know the book is happening, now that I know I'm $25,000 in debt. So burn the ships. We got to go.
We're taking that island.
Yeah. Cool. Remind everybody, and I really hope we'll let everybody know we're gonna do this again because we have a lot more to go through.
We haven't even gotten to the other countries.
I know.
We've talked about Montana.
We talk about Montana and Antarctica and Nicaragua. So I hope you'll come back.
So like 47 other countries to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
I'm down.
Dude, I'm down anytime. Let everybody know again about your Kickstarter, your book, and your socials before we wrap things up.
Yeah. So everything you can find about me is on Andy Austin Photo on all platforms from Instagram to X. I don't know if they use X, but X, YouTube,
I'm all over X.
OnlyFans.
Milo's all over X. I'm an Instagram guy because originally, like, it was the place for photography and photos. But
yeah, I've got it all. Find me on my OnlyFans, Andy Austin Photo. Get some feet pics. Pay for the book.
Yeah,
in the wall tent.
In the wall tent in the backyard.
That's hot.
And then the book will forever be found at montanaphotographybook.com, at least until I forget to renew the domain name.
Right.
But
got a few of those.
Yeah.
All righty.
That's awesome.
Dude, I appreciate you finally coming on. Like I said, I've really wanted to
Thanks for harassing me for so long to get on this, because I know it was like a process to be like, get your ass to here and let's do this. And I was like, yes. And then it just,
Well, I assumed between Bozeman and Billings, we're kind of a stop, but
I like
Mr. Bathman.
occasionally go to the gas station there and pick up some Dots pretzels, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But I'm serious. I'm serious. If you want to do the pub thing or the brewery thing with the book, we can get you into Palladium for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Even if we don't get you in here, maybe we can do like a remote live at the brewery, because we're super famous with all 20 of us, but whatever.
That'd be fun. I mean, like that's why I want to do the I think the brewery thing would be fun, because like you do in these small towns, and it's like people are like, why would you do it in a town of like 1,000 people? And it's like, because those 1,000 people would be stoked you're there and probably buy a book, like
right.
Like versus if you do it in if you do it in Billings where 100,000 plus people live, less than 1% of them are going to be stoked you're there and give a shit and like maybe buy a book.
Yeah, and in
but
a
like
small
when you go to a small town, they're excited you're there and like, hell yeah, let's do support this.
And they're all going to talk to each other about it. And
and as a photographer, and I mean, I spend a lot of time in the mountains. I spend a lot of time in Yellowstone, and luckily I don't get to travel as much as you, because I still have not a 9 to 5, but being a cop, I mean, I can't just pick up and go, but I've enjoyed watching you progress as a photographer. And I have been, I'm that guy that's like, I'll be sitting with my wife or watching hockey or something, like, dude, he's in Costa Rica, check this out, I'm like, type of thing. So for me to sit down and visit with you, I think you and I are going to sit down one of these days side by side at a bar and probably drink a bottle of whiskey together.
100%.
And visit. But to have you on tonight, dude, is truly an honor for me. So I appreciate you setting the time aside to do it. It's Friday night, there's a lot of things we could be doing. So I thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me so much. It was so much fun. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe I'll get a real setup in here so you guys can have I can match the production quality of the studio experience.
We'll help you get the wall tent rigged up with lights and sound.
Yeah,
perfect. But honestly, it'd probably be a great space for it. But
yeah,
I just put a nice whitetail mountain there a couple days ago. So
nice.
Are you a whitetail guy or a mule deer guy? I figured Eastern
whitetail all day.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Ooh, I found something that I do not. Well, besides you being a bobcat, I've overlooked that this entire time. I've overlooked it.
I asked Cole today. I was like,
the reason why they taste so much fucking better.
I've had some really good mule deer.
I've
had some really good mule deer.
Turkey. That's all it's worth.
No, I don't know, dude. There's just something about finding that 180, 190 inch mule deer. No, listen, finding that 180, 190 inch mule deer that you have to figure out it's in the mountains at 10,000 feet, and then outwitting this freaking mountain mule deer that's been alive for 8-9 years to get that big to begin with.
Speaking of jerky, we're all wondering how we can get some of that epic Eastern Montana jerky.
Steakhouse. Got a steakhouse at the steak grocery store.
Yeah, but okay, so you're a whitetail guy, so I can overlook that. Meh. And you're a bobcat, and I'm a huge. So my brother and sister they went to Missoula. I ended up finishing college at MSUB because I was in the military, so I had to figure out just the closest.
Yellow Jackets,
right? Hey, they got baseball now and soccer. They don't have soccer anymore. Yeah, but yeah, I can overlook those things, Andy. I can overlook those things.
My sister went to U of M, and I overlook that all the time. So, and
my daughter just agreed to go to Western, so nice. I'm excited to be a bulldog.
My funny story. My only two out of high school, the only two colleges that were recruiting me were Western and MSU.
Yeah,
and so I had been doing a bunch of MSU recruiting visits, and they were obviously D1, very professional, very orchestrated. They're trying to get these guys from Texas and California to come in. So they're not really, they were really nice. And then Western was recruiting me, and I was like, I should go to Western. I should go and see what they have to offer and talk to them. And it was the most hilarious recruiting visit of all time, because it was Western, and I showed up, and they just a box of pizza on the counter, and they're like, "Hey, you want a slice of pizza?" And I was like, "All right, and then they showed us around, and they're showing us their locker room, and they're like, So this is the locker room, and I'm like, okay. And like I'd seen the MSU locker room, which is like these big oak lockers and safes and like built in, and like these like you sit in the lockers, and you get to Western's locker room, and it's like these little like chainmail lockers with like a stool in front of them. And the like coach was like, yeah, so you're gonna want to make sure you get a locker like right away, because sometimes the seniors like to take two. And I'm like, so your recruiting pitch to me is that I might not even get a locker if I come here.
Oh, that's fucking awesome. But they just got a new football stadium or field. They got a new football field.
Well, also last night I was just at the MSU rodeo event last night. And Western was representing hard. Like they had some good rodeoers last night.
Yeah, Western's making their mark in Montana now. So I'm excited. Sure. My daughter's going to be a Bulldog, and we're going to go to Dillon and watch some football.
Paul Paul Newstrom's in the comments says he went to Western.
Oh, Western.
Yeah.
I like Dillon. I mean, Dillon's a fun time. The Lima, if you ever want the best steak in the entire state of Montana.
Ooh, that's a whole nother podcast, my friend.
No, it's easy. It's one answer. It's the Pete Bar in Lima.
Really?
Yeah, south of Dillon. About half hour south of Dillon, right on the Idaho border.
Yeah, the last time I was there,
it's in his book.
It's in your book.
Good.
I loved it that much. I put it in my book.
Wow. Guess I'm going to Lima.
We're gonna have to try it now, man.
Yeah.
It's in the book.
It is unbelievable. Like I shit you not. I don't know what they did to that steak. I don't know if they put crack in it or what. It was great.
You just said, I shit you not. You know the only other place I've ever heard that? Wyoming.
Really?
I think it's a Montana. No, even when I was in the military, I used to say that all the time, and people are like, what?
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's like a Montana, like I shit you not, or like a shit ton.
I say it a lot. I never really thought about it. Second best steak though, Edgar Bar.
Yes. Edgar Bar has phenomenal steaks. I will say that. And
second best, but it didn't come close to Lima's. Pete's Bar.
Oh. Well, Edgar Bar is like a 30-minute drive for me. So.
Yeah, Edgar didn't make it into the book.
Edgar did not make it in the book.
Version 2.
The
second edition.
There's like so many I don't know. Like I feel like I could do this book could be like 800 pages because I did debate oh man, I have so many good signs of different bars and I actually have a whole spread on the High Line that I put in there a bunch of the in Chinook, the Elk Bar and the Mint Bar from Chinook, great signs. And
yes,
I put those it's a whole spread.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, man, I could have so many more signs, places, signs.
I could see a whole nother book right now of just signs from bars.
Oh, I'm going to tell you now, and this is the first time I publicly announced this for whoever's made it through 3 hours of podcast. The next book, I promise you this, I already have it. I'm going to do it. It's going to be called Brews and Views of Montana, and it's going to be about the breweries and the views around them. Nice. So
I was going to ask you what the next.
Yeah. And you heard it first on the Big Fat Podcast.
Yep. Everything you need to know.
It's going to be it's going to show the, Malta brewing. And then it's going to be around the High Line and views. So it's going to be a page about the brewery. And then it's going to be some cool scenic views. I just feel like it's going to be the ultimate Father's Day dad gift,
and
what is dad need? He needs a book about beer and landscapes.
Yeah. And if you need somebody to make sure the landscape is okay with the brew, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
Hey man, I appreciate you coming on. I know I've pestered you long enough for it. So
you honestly that is the only way to do to get me to do anything. It's not because I don't want to do it. It's because I have the attention span of a squirrel and I don't remember it.
Dude, we do too.
We get it.
We totally get it. So
if you don't consistently be hey, I'm really grateful for you to not only confirm today's date, but have sent me 15 follow-up texts and emails about hey, it's today. And I'm I honestly, you get me, because that is the only way to get me to do anything.
Hey,
That's the cop in me and the investigator. So I'm investigating crimes, and I got to do a follow-up interview or interview somebody that's involved in an investigation. And like every day, I'm like, "Hey, man, just checking to see. We need to sit down."
But have you pulled over Tanner Perdue yet?
Tanner Perdue. I haven't personally. No.
Oh, Columbus boy.
Although, but I'm not a big traffic cop. I mean, I did a lot of drug work. But I'm not a big like speeder guy, because people that are carrying dope usually don't speed.
Well, he doesn't live there anymore. He hasn't lived there for a while, but he's from Columbus originally.
What's his last name?
Perdue.
I know the last name. So
I know a lot of people from Columbus, actually. The Barnharts,
Bernhardt's. They're from Park City. Jess Mulligan, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So
Ira?
I work with her mom.
Oh, nice.
She works at the sheriff's office, so I've worked with her. So I told her you were going to come on tonight, and she was like, "Oh, that's cool." So she's probably listening, or she's going to listen later. So
cool. Yeah.
Dude,
he's
super stoked to have you on, and let's do this again sometime. Okay.
We do appreciate your time.
I'm going to come in. We're going to go drink 15 beers at the Columbus Brewery, past the limit, and then we're going to stroll across the street into this podcast.
Make it across the tracks to the old Big Fest Studios.
All right, guys. Andy Austin.
Yes.
See you guys.
That
Appreciate
podcast.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too. We'll see you
later.